I became part of the network and I became part of the money laundering that is the art world. But there was a part of me that I was being very aware that there was something that it was not happening. And I didn't know there was the problem with money. So imagine, if they're stealing your money, they're also stealing your freedom. There's going to be, we don't know if it's the Bitcoin reserve, it is something else is coming. And that disruption is needed so we can move to the next level.
Monika, we're here.
Hey, Kyle.
In person and doing a podcast.
And in Seattle.
Woke Central, apparently.
This is Woke Central. We're at the University of Washington. Pure Woke Central.
And we did not ask if we could do a Bitcoin podcast here, but we're doing it.
Of course, we're not going to ask permission. It needs permission. And if they come after me, it's like, well, you didn't tell me I couldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a ton to cover today, and yes. I want to make the most of our time. But I would love for you to just give a little bit of background on who you are. You describe yourself as a polymath
yes.
and a multidisciplinary artist, but just kind of give people a little bit of where you're coming from.
Okay, so I was born in Bogota, Colombia, almost 61 years ago, and I grew up, Colombian girl. And I was very curious since I was very little, so I was reading and asking a lot of questions, probably sometimes too many, and so my mom and my dad were like, oh, what does this girl want? But I was given the opportunity to always have a way to study. So my father was very much into books, my mom was an educator, and my grandmother too. So I grew up in a way thinking and knowing that there was always a possibility for me to look for stuff and to find it in books, whether there were encyclopedias or just having conversations. My grandmother knew a lot. So, or she at least, I thought that she did. I mean, she did. So I have this mind that is very about inquiring. So I developed like a whole childhood where, I would like to go out and play, but I prefer to be with books and to investigate. And I found out after my father died when I was 8 years old that I could actually look for something deeper. So I always been a seeker in a way until like 5 years ago with the pandemic, I stopped saying that I was seeking and I wanted to embody all my experience. But between then and the pandemic, what happened was that I did a bunch of stuff. I studied in Europe. I wanted to be a fashion designer, did the whole career, realized that I was going to be a slave for corporations and stuff like that. But I love clothes, so I just wanted to know how to make those things. Then I turned to photography, which I always been taking pictures. And I would call myself an image maker. I just wanted to put things together. But I did study photography, black and white photography, and I lived in London and then in Greece. And so I did, let's say, like 8 years in my 20s of research, like studying, always like vocational stuff, whether it was photography or fashion. And I never wanted to go to academia. The joke this morning, I was saying that this is the closest I've been to academia is the last 3 days. I'm in the campus. So, wow. But I wanted to be able to study things that are very practical, because I'm a very practical, pragmatic person in that sense. So I ended up, being 30 years old, and by chance or destiny, I met artists that they were quite successful, and one of them was a boyfriend at the time. And I traveled the world with him and seeing how incredible it was that you have ideas that are conceptual and you can actually make them happen. And what it was interesting for me is like people were paying for that, and I was like, okay, I have to figure this out, because I always had the soul of an artist. And an artist, this is interesting because a lot of people think that art is only painting. But you can have, like, if you think of the word art, it in Greek, it means, it is called kalitechni, which is like a good skill. So you can be good at something, at many things. So you can have the skill to sing, or the skill to draw, or the skill to sculpt. So, but I had the skill of like putting images together. But I didn't call myself an artist because, sometimes you grow up and you think that society has to give you the name with a diploma or like, but I never thought that I wanted that. Like my mom was like, you should get into school. And so when I moved to New York, I said, I don't want to go to school. So I started creating, and people will call and say, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm an artist. So what do you do? Well, I don't know, I'm figuring out. But I would work every day, go to museums, buy a lot of books, study art, observe, ask questions. And so that was very fulfilling for me. And then all of a sudden I found the language of something that I was trying to do. I did go to some seminars, so I'm not completely I'm self-taught, but I will go to places where I feel that I could do it. but not academia. And so I developed a style, and all of a sudden I was showing, and so that's how I got into art. So by age 31, 32, I was already creating work.
Wow. Okay. That's
it's a handful.
That is a lot, but I love it. And just the fact that, you know, a lot of people have this experience where you're trained or you're taught, you're programmed not to be an artist. And I worked for a company called Creative Live for a while. It was a online education platform for creators, and the thing that we used to just always hammer was like, we are all born creative.
Yes.
We sit in the desks at school for 12 years, and by the time we get out of college,
we forget.
We don't identify as creative.
100%.
So I've told this story maybe on this podcast, maybe not, but I was in a class in college, business class, and the teacher asked, how many of you raised your hand if you identify as creative? Not one person, including myself, raised my hand. Yeah, it was, which is, when you think about it, it almost gives me like chills now, because it's like, it's sad. It really is. But I want to transition a little bit, because your entire book, it's hard to put a finger on it, but it's a lot about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a lot about finding your authentic self, not to be cliche, like genuinely finding and being yourself.
And accepting who you are.
Totally. So I don't know where that leads us, but yeah.
Well, I can tell you a little bit, like jumping from that moment that I became an artist, and then I did many years, and I trial and error. So you do, and I was learning every time that I was doing something, I was learning something else. I put it in the back of my brain and going. But then at age 50, I arrived, and I was like, this is a hoax. Because I became part of the network, and I became part of the money laundering that is the art world, and all of that. But there was a part of me that I was being very aware that there was something that it was not happening, and I didn't know there was the problem with money. But I was aware of it, but I didn't know what it was. But so I'm 50. I leave my marriage. I leave everything. I leave the galleries, and I'm like, I'm still young. I already started doing a lot of commission work and stuff like that, but there was something deeper. So the book is a little bit the story since I left my marriage, which is 10 years ago, and I kind of already made my mind about leaving the art world, but I don't know how. But I want out. And all I can do is try to get out, but I have to kind of seek another way. But it's not that I had the answer immediately. I had to go through different, it was very, very, there were moments that were very depressing, because I thought I had made a mistake in my life, but then I figured out that it was not, that if you find out that you're in the wrong place, it's not a mistake. It's just you become aware that this place is no longer what serves you, and that's what happened to me. So that's when I started becoming more aware. And the book is a little bit the story of that path that I found different techniques how to do that. Astrology, human design, and then Bitcoin became another way of understanding with Austrian economics. So that's the story.
So you were 50 when you first found Bitcoin.
Around, I would say I was 50, 2014. I heard about Bitcoin 2014.
Okay.
But I didn't listen.
Neither did I. None of us do. Neither was our guy here, Trevor. That was right before the podcast.
Yeah.
So was COVID the pivotal moment for you, or was it before COVID that you already knew you wanted out? And I mean, it sounds like 10 years ago is before COVID. So
I wanted out of the system. I wanted out of the hoax. I wanted out of this like hamster wheel where you're running, or like rat race, because that's what they call it. And I was like, but this couldn't be it. I mean, I've check all the things, and I've done everything that is properly. I mean, in my own way, I did it.
You have. I mean, I was reading your bio. It's like there's 2 paragraphs of awards, and like you did a fellowship or a artist program in Venice, I believe. Like,
no, I was part of the biennial, which is a very big deal. That's like the Super Bowl of everything. And then when you're invited to represent, it's like that's that's it.
That's it. So you had achieved everything you wanted to in that.
Yeah, but no matter what I did, it was always empty. And then I started figuring out. So what didn't make sense to me was like more like the money part of it. That's why when Bitcoin kind of came into, and I had time for Bitcoin, I was like, oh, I always been talking about value since I was little. I was always trying to trade things. I was reprimanded in school because I was trying to sell stuff. things that I was selling, like making ear holes. My mom was like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, but they pay me very well. Oh, can you just concentrate on the books? And I was like, okay, but it's so boring. I could be making money and studying. So I was always interested in the idea of like value, but I didn't know, and I will be very good at that. I've always been charging. Even when I was an artist, they will ask me, oh, maybe we should sell this. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get that.
Yeah, you told that story in the book where you're like, your friend was asking, like, what should we charge? And you're like, I forget the number, but it's some ridiculous number. And the client was like, yep, sounds good.
Yeah, you just give yourself the value. Like, but the gallerist was like, well, the market. And I'm like, what market are you talking about? It's my time.
Right.
And so that's why things are making sense. So when I saw that a lot of things were not working, I couldn't pinpoint what it was. And I was not upset. I was upset at myself of not knowing by 50. You're like, come on. But I said, okay, I can give myself that time. First of all, I have to get out because I don't like being a whiner. I'm not the kind of person that complains. So if I see that something doesn't work and I don't have the solution, then at least I stop doing it and then I look elsewhere. So I heard from a friend, but at the time, 2014, I needed to get out of my marriage first. And I couldn't, so because everything was very intertwined. And so she told me about Bitcoin, and I was like, I can't, like, it sounds great, but I can't. And then by the time I was left with no money because I made very bad choices after my divorce. So I didn't have the money to do that, or even the head. So I said, no, I have to figure this out. So it took me a few years to figure it out, like how to get and be at peace with me and my decisions. So that's, I dedicated more time to my emotional body, to my, whatever trauma, whatever decisions I've been making in my life. So that was priority. So once that was healed, then, okay, let's talk about money. So, but it was like a year before the pandemic. So it's 2019. I have a friend that he was always complaining about money, but then he stopped saying things about money, and then he started like always talking about like this and that. And I said, what happened to you? And he goes, I found something that is quite amazing. And I said, what? And he says, Bitcoin. And I said, you have to explain that to me, because I have heard about it, but I didn't understand. So he came in, but he didn't do the work of explaining. He just took my phone and he opened a Coinbase account. And I said, oh, magic.
That's the way to do it.
But I want to know more. So he said, how much? And I said, I don't know, 500, 800, whatever, like, let's put it. And then I started putting more, but then I started seeing that it would go up and go down. It was really low at the time, in comparison to, but there was something that it was sketchy for me to see that it was like magic. And I'm like, there should be something more valuable here, but I don't know. And it felt for me that if I didn't know how to use it, it was easier for me to throw the money in the sink, or like, in the toilet. So if it's still my time, like, I have to earn it, and why am I not being aware? So I looked for somebody to teach me, but I had asked my astrologer. I studied astrology, and I asked him, and he was receiving Bitcoin, and I said, do you want to, like, I don't know, like, let's figure this out. He said, I don't have time, and so I said, oh, wow, it wouldn't be great if I find an astrologer, Bitcoiner. I don't know, I thought that those two things. And one day, because everything comes to me in a very synchronistic way, somebody else, another astrologist, taking classes, because I used to run like little study groups supporting people for astrology, because that's the way you kind of learn and give back. So somebody asked a question, and the question was like, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, hold on. And I went on, I was walking, so I looked for the blah, blah, blah answer. And I found out that this blah, blah, blah person had just done a podcast with this other person that I never heard of. And so I gave it to her and said, oh, you're looking for this? Listen to this guy. He's really, and if you can buy his books, he's the best. And then I thought, who's this other guy? And then I'm walking, and I started listening to the podcast. This is 2020 early. And the first thing he says to the other blah, blah, blah guy, they're talking about astrology, he says, oh, that sounds like Bitcoin. And I'm like, oh my God, I asked 6 months ago, I want this. So I went to his classes, or he was not teaching about Bitcoin, he was teaching about astrology. And he had a more like exclusive group. He's very fiat in that sense, like exclusive group. So you're gonna
not open source.
No,
but that's
it's more like I teach you, but you pay me all this. And there was there was a lot of like the Clubhouse.
Okay, yeah.
So I started going to these groups I didn't understand, and it was nerve-breaking. People just like, it became this thing, and I was like, no, I need method. I need methodology, because I need to be able to ask things that I don't understand. And so this guy didn't have the patience to explain. So when somebody in the group says, oh, his girlfriend is running a women's Bitcoin group. And I'm like, okay. So how much? Expensive like crazy. And I said, it's okay, I'll pay. So I got into the classes, and she was really good at teaching, because I said, I really want to know. And she was good at, like, I would ask questions, and she didn't know, she will bring back the information. And I thought, this is what I need. So I did, like 6 months with her. Really nice group. But I noticed is, like, a lot of the people in the group are people who actually want to be fed with information, don't want to do much. So I was bored after a while. We had a community. I was bringing all the news every day. Did you read this? Did you hear that? I found this. So everybody was like, what's up, Monika? What is new? Even including the teacher. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, I'm paying a fortune here, and I'm the one feeding. I'm like, so I said, guys, don't you want to like community isn't like a, and I saw that they were like, no, I have a child, or I don't care, and this and that. And I thought, no, I have to open. And that's when I thought, maybe I should start volunteering. And that's what I did. I said, I need to go and meet the Bitcoiners. And I started volunteering.
So you volunteered at the Bitcoin conference in Miami?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
And I volunteered there, and I made a big deal because I never volunteered in my life for anything.
Uh-huh.
I always charge for whatever I do. So everybody was like, everybody, volunteer here, first time.
Uh-huh.
This means a lot.
Yeah.
And it was great. It was great. I found that that conference is very big for volunteer, but it gave me like an overall picture of what Bitcoin is. So I'm very good at observing different kind of realities. So I was kind of observing behind the scenes, and it was fantastic. There were so many layers for me, and I got like, okay, I have to learn this, and I have to, because I listened to talks. I was behind the scene. I met a lot of people, asked a lot of questions. And I said, okay, this is very complex. This is an incredible network. And there's so many layers that I can connect to. And that, for me, was like, wow. Like, it will happen one way or another.
Wow. So when you mean layers, what exactly does that mean? Or like, explain a little more on.
So there are layers, like, okay, so let's go to the basic. Is like, one of the things that I love the most is like people are committed to Bitcoin, but they're also committed to teaching or talking about it. And so they make presentations, so they investigate, they don't talk about the same thing over. I mean, you could, but you can kind of like refine it. So you have that commitment to yourself and to the network, or to the whole, paradigm. And then you show that. Second is the whole part, and I'm not a collectivist, but the part of the creating a community where everybody's individuated, like people are finding their own selves and they're contributing as themselves, and then we create a community based on who we are, not who we idealize to be. Which is, I think that's the problem with like the woke people and everything, is that they're creating this ideal, but they're not really doing it. And I'm not saying that every Bitcoiner already knows who they are, but there is a chance that they're more individuated, that they know more about freedom, they've made hard choices in their lives, and they're, more based or grounded. So I saw that. I also saw that there's so much to be done. So it gave me the potential, like, okay, if I'm ever going to serve in this community, what will be that shape? And I had no idea. And I was curious. I said, if one day I do it, like how? So when I started volunteering, I never told anybody what I've done. Because it's the first thing I didn't want to do, because that's what you do in New York. What are you doing? You're nothing. Yeah. And then you do curriculum, all that. And I was like, no, I want to just be here, like completely like a fly on the wall.
Just a pleb.
Just pleb, yeah. And I love that word. Mm-hmm. It's like, I'm a pleb and here and that. And so people, some people will ask me, and I was like that, but I was not doing this New York thing that you get to a place and you're trying to exert your influence or your power, and you get upset that people don't recognize and they don't give you the time of the day, So I was like, no, that's different. Because there's a difference between pretense and value.
Okay.
So people want to pretend, they're not necessarily, they don't value themselves. They're using this like persona, this outside idea of how they present themselves, because maybe they look or they sound, but that doesn't mean that they are. Now, valuing yourself is a deeper way of understanding what your needs are, and then you actually have some leverage and you create a relationship with the other where you actually say yes or no or maybe, and you open up for a dialogue, but you're not like basing on like your curriculum.
Okay.
Or I don't know if...
No, it totally makes sense. Yeah, so you're acting more from a place of integrity.
Yes.
And being more of your authentic self in that situation. Yeah. Totally makes sense. How do you know, this is a question from your book.
Yes.
How do you know if you're being authentic or not? Because sometimes I'll say things or I'll act a certain way and my girlfriend will be like, dude, what are you doing? What are you pretending? You know, why are you being whatever? She'll call me out on it really quick, even when I don't notice it, you know, and I'll be like, yeah, you're right. I am just sort of putting on an act.
So I'll say something that I learned through the work of Gabor Mate.
Okay.
He's an incredible physician that ended up doing a lot for the world in terms of what trauma is. He has a beautiful documentary called The Wisdom of Trauma.
Okay.
I always recommend that. He's an older man. I think he's quoted in my book at one point at the very beginning, because he talks about how when we are little, we're disconnected from many things and we get hurt. Not because they're being mean to us. It's like sometimes parents are not there for you. Like I had things, we're good, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, so, sorry.
The lights just went off.
Yeah, it's
randomly.
Okay. So he says that when we're little and we're not being taken care of and something happens to us in our imagination, we kind of get disconnected to something. And so we start creating adaptations. We start creating other things that are going to fulfill that like sense of disconnection. So how he defines this is he says, when you are willing to be connected but you don't have that connection, you are able to sacrifice your authenticity for security. Because what you want is somebody to hold your hand, or somebody to say, it's okay, baby, don't be afraid, or whatever. Like you want mom and dad or grandparents, whoever is taking care of you, to make you feel that you're safe. Because when we're children, we don't know really how the world lives. We come to this world not knowing, and we want an authority person to be somebody who it's emotionally adult. But that's not the case 80% of the time.
Sure.
We have parents that are like, emotional, unavailable and stuff like that. So when I did that connection, it was like amazing, because I understood that I've been all my life striving to be authentic, not striving to be authentic, but really hold on to that, because I've been always like, I want to be my own person like that. But at times, in certain areas, especially like intimate relationships with ex-husbands, that's where I gave all my power away. So that's why I needed to get stopped, needed to learn who I am, what I need, because then I can value it, and that's going to give me the meaning of life. So it's a whole process of going back and understanding what is it that you need, because even my siblings need something different. So we have to go from there. And being authentic means that you're really doing what you came here to do, and you'll do it all the way. You're not compromising. And I think that sometimes we compromise because we want to be there, because it's more shining. There's nothing wrong with being ambitious, but you got to understand, is that really what you need, and are you valuing your needs?
Yeah. There's you kind of tied together a couple different things. One is the story around volunteering. You talked about how you never volunteered, and now you say, I'm in service, like I want to be of service.
Yes.
Is the way you put it.
Yeah.
And then the intimate relationships thing is another big one, because it seems like that specific situation, so many people go through that exact thing where like they're kind of happy with this person sometimes, and maybe they're supported by them or vice versa, but they're being eaten alive inside because they know
Yes.
it's like not the place for them. They know deep down that they need to make a change.
Yeah.
And I've seen that quite a bit.
That's very disempowering. Like, let's say that I've been together, like married twice, and then let's say 2 other relationships. And what I've noticed with time was that maybe because I didn't have a father growing up, like I will project that need into somebody that will hug me and say, don't worry, I'll take care of you, because a little girl wants to be taken care of. So I had like that. That's what I gave in exchange of being authentic. I gave that sense of a hug, a security. And so I will attract this kind of men that they were very protective, but maybe they were not emotionally available. So what happened at the very end, it was that I will be mixed up about love and companionship, and then the worst, mixing my money with her. So that's where I learned, like, you don't mix that. And that was a big learning for me at 50, getting a divorce and realizing that I had made a huge mistake because there was a lot of manipulation. Money is the biggest manipulation. And this is what I teach when I teach girlfriends about Bitcoin. I always say to them, you know that you don't have to tell your boyfriend or your husband about Bitcoin. Oh, is it secret? I go, no, but don't give your power away. Don't go saying, oh, baby, this is for the two of us, because it isn't. And that's where I learned. I learned a lot. Like, I failed to take care of myself for the sake of the companionship. And then when I did the divorce, which I just didn't understand what I was doing, because I wanted out so much that I didn't think about me. And now I would do something completely different. I think about me, and then I deal with out or not. But I didn't know how to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Money is definitely, it's at such a, like you talk about layers, it's the ground layer,
yes, 100%.
Right, of everything. And even if you're an artist, you're someone who typically, from what I've seen, artists, they're not business people. Like, those are two different sides of the brain. So a lot of artists, my roommate's a glass blower, for example. Nice. He's not like thinking all the time about how to make more money. He just wants to go to the studio and do his art, right? And he makes these incredible glass things. And it's, he's found Bitcoin, which is awesome. And he has the ability to store some of his savings in that. But I do think there's situations and groups of people that really can benefit from knowledge around finances in general.
And the arts, like I gave a talk at the BitBlock Boom last week, and it was it was called The Value of Scarce Time. And what I wanted to do is like talk about this logical thing, and then kind of like give some examples of me as an artist, like what were the decisions I made. And so I spoke about how I did not know the difference between being productive and knowing how to save my time. Because I thought that, for instance, I did a lot of sales, like I was selling a lot. But then instead of putting some money aside in a hard asset, I will reinvest everything in my work. And I thought that I was being clever. The thing is that I was actually diluting the value of my time, because sometimes I could sell those pieces, sometimes not. And so I realized that I was just putting everything back into the business. And I thought it was really clever, like the studio, the assistants, the networking, the clothes, everything that it takes. And then at times paying storage for pieces that were not sold. So I'm like, or having an extra amount of assistance, and so everybody needs a pair of this and a pair of that. So at the end, it's like a lot of money. My time is just diluted because I think that I need all these things, but I just didn't know. Like right now, if I teach artists, I will go like, no, you just have to make a list of things that you need, and there are a lot of things that you don't need. You just have to really make very important decisions. So that's why I love so much Austrian economics, because it's really the base of like how to make, Mises used to say, this is one of the first things he says, is like every decision is economical. And that's what really opportunity cost is. It's like you have to choose this over that. And then if you do like a tree, it's like you start from here from the decision, and then depending where you go, you're just going to go in very different places. So this is for me important. The talk also, I talk about how important it is to really understand what your like, that nonviolence is super important, and property rights is what protects that. Because I grew up in Colombia, very violent country in the 70s, so we lived in a state of fear. So you never thought about the future, you never thought about it, and you never think that actually the future could be something that doesn't have to be that violent. So for me, when I learn about like, okay, I can actually be together in a situation with a bunch of people, and we can trade, we can talk, we can interact without being violent and respecting each other. It was a big one. And during pandemic, obviously I didn't get the vaccine. Just understanding that the body is the first and most important property, that was like, blew my mind. I was like, I'm going to defend that until I'm dead. Like, I mean, you kind of heard the argument at the end with the guy, and I ended up with like the property of my body, like, and he was like, oh, I get it. It's like, I will defend that because it's something that I don't think people just relate to that. They think that property is only something that you own. But I mean, if your body is being violated in any way, it's like, that's the first thing that you have to protect.
Totally.
And the third one, which is really what got me absolutely into Bitcoin, was low time preference. Because I was never taught to save, and I'm not blaming my mom, but when my father died, she kept on going like, let's travel, let's go out, let's have fun, let's enjoy life. Your father died very young. He was 37 years old. So that created a mark. I'm not blaming, but like, I don't know, I never heard the word saving at all. And so had I known, which I didn't, doesn't matter, now I know, so now I just reshape everything. And I make sure that I tell people around me, family members, that, let's rethink all this thing about time and choices. You are free as long as you make the right choices. Otherwise, you end up being a debt slave, which I don't think a lot of people realize how bad it is. So it became this for me, has become this state of consciousness, that's what I call Bitcoin, that is really being able to synthesize everything that I've done in my life, and I can actually channel it and reduce it to something that is like, those 3 axioms are very important. With that, I can build my life.
Fantastic.
And I can teach other people to rebuild their lives. If they don't know them, if they connect the 3 of them, that's the base. That's the layer 1.
Wow. So to jump off of that, I was raised slightly differently. I was always like, my parents were savers. They were just like, save, save, save. When I was a kid, they would give me, tooth fairy money or whatever. I would just save that stuff. I probably had a couple $1,000s when I was like 14 or something, just from saving. And I reffed soccer for $25 a game. But the advice to just save it doesn't work, because you could just keep saving those dollars and they're losing value every single day.
Yes.
So I had this thing where I was like, I need to make tons of money. Like, I need to start a business and it has to be a unicorn. It has to be so successful. I'm not saying like billions, but like, I have to sell a multi-million-dollar business to even have a family and a house, and like, just
to be normal.
That was what my logical brain came to after just like running the numbers. Like, how much money do you need? What's the average salary? How much does a car cost? Like, basic stuff. And finding Bitcoin shifted me back a little bit to, oh wait, I can just add value to the marketplace, get compensated for that, and store it in Bitcoin. So it almost has allowed me to go back towards a more creative state and less like forced towards just making money. And I was passionate. I'm a very passionate person. So I was always, since I was 16 years old, I was like, I'm not going to be in a cubicle. I'm going to find another way.
Great, freedom.
And so it's led me to Bitcoin. And
that's beautiful, because it means that, we come all from different spectrums, the side of and then we find something that it actually makes sense to however or wherever we came from, and then it really, Bitcoin finds this is a beautiful way to really reconnecting to certain values that probably we don't know that they're there, but they're there. We just need to understand what they are. And that's when we connect, and we can talk for hours about how great it is. And I think that's how we're really making this community. And I'm not like a person that says we should hold hands and do all these things. I'm not that kind of person. I'm more about responsibility. I like that word, and accountability. I think that we are integrity. Like, there's certain words that I speak about in my book. Like, integrity is something super important for me, because that's going to give me the price that I have, the top where I'm not going to bend for something. So this is, and it's very personal. It's like, it's a vertical line. Now, principles is a horizontal line that the base of that word means beginning, foundation. So if we have a foundation, you're good. And then you establish a verticality where you want to go. And that's yours. Now, we have also, I call it like the axis of everything, that we have the morality and we have ethics. Now, these are more collective. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have them. The thing is that you cannot start from morals and ethics without having principles and integrity. Because a lot of people give those things away because they don't even know. So I think that getting to know yourself and understanding first, what do you need? Oh, you don't have that, then you're giving it away. So you're not being authentic. And so it's all connected.
That is really interesting. overemphasis on morality and ethics, almost sacrificing principles and integrity, right? Like what you're talking about, it's like, not my body, my choice, until the jab comes out. Now it's, hey, you're a grandma killer. And the thing that I love how you just casually mentioned, yeah, of course you didn't get that thing. Of course I didn't either, right? And it's kind of opens up this conversation because I want to hear what you have to say about this. I was 16 years old, and I had a friend who told me 9/11 was an inside job. So I was like, dude, I argued so emotionally. I was like, no chance, no, 0%. I don't believe it. I argued so like day after day in my chemistry class. And eventually I was like, I'm open-minded enough. I'm going to look at the links. I'm going to actually, okay, there's some unanswered questions. There's more to look into here. And that just like triggered this, what I describe as awakening of some sort, where I just started to re-question everything that I had been taught. History, religion. I was raised Catholic, like Roman Catholic. I always thought like Roman Catholic is the way and everything else is dumb. And so
you've been traumatized by the same kind of people.
But I guess my point is like, I never knew what the value of critical thinking was, or I had a hard time describing it, because I would say, look, you got to be a critical thinker. It changes your life. It's just, not only does it just make you not so scared of the world because you have critical thinking, you can just logically, you're like, okay, we can figure this out. But it put me in a situation where there was a experimental gene therapy that could potentially stop me from having kids and shorten my life. And I was like, there's no chance I'm doing that. So that was the moment where I was like, okay, that critical thinking that was triggered at 16 years old didn't really come, like it wasn't obvious to me how important it was.
Until you had to make a choice.
Until I had to make the choice. And all those, like, plenty of sacrifices to be the critical thinker, right? I was the conspiracy theorist, I was the crazy guy, whatever, like the chemtrails guy, all these things. And so, I really, really value critical thinking. And you talk in your book about how education is supposed to train critical thinking.
Yes.
For engaging in society.
But
right?
I think it's been weaponized, unfortunately. And one of the things that when I was writing the book, it was I've never really been political, or I've been political but never been speaking out loud. I was like, I don't care. Never voted until I voted for Donald Trump. I'm just like, you just gotta do it. So I'm extreme sometimes. So, but the interesting thing was that I started really reading a lot about what was going on with all the woke and Marxism, and then I realized, I think there's this guy called James Lindsay that he runs this thing, New Discourses, and started really reading his stuff. And I actually stopped listening to him or reading Twitter because he became too content. Sometimes people just go to the extreme. I'm like, okay, I read what I needed from him. But the time I was reading this is I was writing the book. And so there was a big like, wow, what's going on? So he was talking about John Dewey, which used to be this pragmatist educator in the United States. My mom loved him so much because he was always talking about how to learn through democracy. And this is something that I'm really interested in, because when I found out that this country is a republic and it's not a democracy, it's like, wait, okay, so we're already everybody, including the government, is just speaking about something that is not correct. And I think if we need to really go back to what is correct, we really need to go back to the Bill of Rights. We need to understand really what are the principles, because everybody's talking about things, but they're not even the principle. They're kind of making things up. So I was completely torn because my mom and my grandmother were educators and they were very progressive. And now, when I was little, I loved that word, but now progressive is like, excuse me, okay, is that a little bit like to the left? And how progressive can you be? And is that really lefty? And is it that wokey? Like, so I was like,
it's a nice word, progressive, right?
It is. Progress. It's a progress. Yeah. But this is what is interesting. So you go and read The Creature of Jekyll Island, and you go like, oh, and we know that he started as a conspiracy theory for 9/11.
Who did?
Grant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he started, and then he went that way.
Okay.
But he was one of the biggest, like, oh, this thing, it's like a job, like an inside job, something like that. So, and I have my own story when I went on. But when I read that book and everything, and then I started thinking, okay, what about the Rockefellers? Like, you go and see this philanthropy, and then you see that they're actually putting so much money into grants, because grants are Rockefeller, and they're giving these grants to science, to medicine, pharmaceuticals, and then to arts. So I was like, oh, these people are just like lobbying that part, in academia. So actually, and this is when does it happen? 1920. So how many years do we have the program? Oh my God, a century. This is like many generations here. So I was okay. And then started looking. I've always been doing alternative medicine since I was little. I had dreams about being a Chinese person before. So I told my mom when I was like 8 or 9, get me an acupuncture and give me the needle man.
The needle man.
Because I would used to watch Kung Fu and all that, and I said I want to have a shifu. When I grow up, I'm gonna have one. And Mom, I need needles. And she's like, she found the needle man. That it was he had lived in China, and then since then, I never do hospitals. I don't do nothing. I'm just like, I know how to take care of myself and my immune system. So I kind of like knew already since I was little that there's certain things that they were correct for me, and I was not going to follow any hurt. So for instance, for me, pharma is something that is completely disassociated. But my mom loved the pills. I know many people who are like, oh, I had a headache, and they eat the whole thing. So me seeing together that the history of money and, taxes being illegal, same time, and then kind of at the same time, we have this pharmaceutical thing that is exploding. Rockefeller helps the government to get rid of alternative medicine.
Right. Chiropractors,
it's like almost illegal.
Right.
So you go like, okay, this is very fishy. So you start, I don't know if you ever read, this is a great book, Fiat Food.
I have not.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Is
it's
it
so
great?
good. Because it really tells you the story, like with names and numbers and everything. So it's so great. And you get
I need those receipts.
To food.
Yeah. Because I tell people, it makes logical sense to me. It's one of those things, it's like, yeah, I get it. Like I feel like I don't need to read it, but then I don't have the receipts, right? So it's like, has the fact that the dollar loses value impacted the quality of food?
It's just the way things were done. His name is Matthew Lissek, and he brings the receipts in the sense that he tells me the history of how things like even the food pyramid was done,
right,
and how decisions were made by people who had no idea about it, food. There were just people there. That like even Keynesian economics is done by a guy that he was not even an economist. That he was just a mathematician. Oh, you come over here and do some numbers. So this is interesting how like the most important decisions are made by people who have no idea, but there is a circumstance that actually works, and then people believe that that's the truth. And so for me, it's like the whole last century has been a lie, like one after the other. And the biggest thing for me to accept was, I had studied the World Trade Center in 2001. As an artist, and the work that I was working on was that I lost a lot of images because they were on the wall.
Oh wow!
Was the moon landing?
Oh wow!
Because that summer there was all over the place saying that was a hoax, and I was fascinated with the idea of being a hoax because I remember saying, "But wait, I was 4. I saw it." So people were like, what do you mean you saw it? Well, I saw it on TV. Yeah, but that was TV. And I was like, oh, you have a point. So at that time, NASA had a lot of footage online. And I had been connected to the internet since the very first escape, like I was there. And so I downloaded. Now you don't have that, but I downloaded everything. There were a lot of video VHS tapes that you could buy. Or Amazon was already selling those. So I bought everything that I could, and I created a video that became a piece called Playing with Time, where I actually create my own. Like, oh yeah, I saw it. Like, it's here. The document. So I created a fake documentary of them landing, but it's all the landings put in one. So I did revise a lot of the footage, and I was like, this is not okay. But I thought, wouldn't it be great if we find out that this is what I'm working on during that summer. Then one day I go in the building, and they're putting a plaque with the name of Silverstein, which is this guy who just
Larry.
Recently leased the building.
Right.
And I remember saying to a Mexican guy was there who used to work, and I'm like, oof, sketchy. And he goes, yeah, right. And I said, can you imagine you have the name, first name and last name of this person here in the building? And I knew a lot about the history of the building because it was a lease, and it was run by two governments, like New Jersey and New York. So it's a port authority. And that land doesn't belong to anybody, but it belongs to the two. And so they're the same people who control the bridges. So it belongs to the government. So it's like, why on earth do we have a person with a name? And and it's called like Silverstein's property. So that word of property, I was like looking up and going like, property, wow. I just thought, it's not good. And I started noticing that things changed that summer. They put more security. So they were asking me to do, like entering almost like to the airport right now. And I was like, something's odd here. And I would say things, and people were like, oh, you're a little bit too paranoid. Because I always been a little bit like thinking that something is not real. And so that happened that night. I was filming a storm. So I have video of a storm. And then my ex-husband called me. He says I should go home. Because I tell him, could you bring me cigarettes? I'm running out. And he goes, no, you come home. So I got saved by a pack of cigarettes. And I left. But then as soon as the towers came down and everything, and people learned that I had video, all the conspiracy theorists started approaching me. Can I see the footage? But there was a lot of pressure for me to kind of be associated with these people, because I thought, I just go that way and I'm not going to have a career. No, I'm not. Because people are going to go like, you're cuckoo. I was not ready to be.
Oh, yeah. And at that time, like now, 2025, people are asking these questions. It's okay for me to casually mention this on a podcast. 2001?
No, I would be very upset and say to people like, look, you cannot have my footage. I will do a cease and desist letter if you see it. And they were like, but why? And I'm like, I just want to keep on going. And I didn't want to be. Now it's like, I have few friends that they recontact me, people, and some of them, they use some of my footage, and I have, my stuff is in conspiracy theories because I don't care anymore. But then it was a thought, like, it was risky.
For sure.
And I wasn't sure.
Wow.
I wasn't ready.
That is a crazy story. So my understanding is you were building you were working in the World Trade Centers?
Well, there's a residency program, not in that building anymore, but it's called the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council. It's like a group of artists or whatever that they have money from the city, and they take like empty buildings and they give those buildings or places like this, place like this, to artists for 6 months, and you win like a grant to be there for 6 months, so you have a place where to work, and then by the end of that time they will invite people, so you show your work. So it's a place of, like, it's called art residency. So
residency.
Yeah, so that was the residency, and it happened to be at the World Trade Center.
Okay.
92nd floor.
Oh, wow.
Across where Lutnik is.
Okay.
So, I mean, like, I know who he is since the very beginning, Cantor Fitzgerald, all that. No, I think he was, one of those offices. So, it was there. It was weird.
Wow. Larry used to have breakfast on the top floor every single day. Had a dentist appointment on Monday, Tuesday morning, 9/11. There's so much to that.
And the last thing is, like, we had the studio at 91st floor, looking Central Park that way, north. He said that he wanted that as his office, so we had to move to the. In a way, probably a lot of people got more safe because this is the first floor with the airplane. Now that I think about it, I mean, I'm going to be conspiracy theories like that. They're saying that there's no airplane or there were missiles or something like that, but I'm sure that they put some explosives. So him claiming that floor, completely floor for him, it makes all the sense that he needed, something needed to be done in the building. And I noticed a lot of stuff those weeks, and that day, it was very eerie for me. I kept on going like, oh, there's something.
Wow.
I was having like goosebumps and stuff like that.
Wow. It's one of the craziest stories I've ever heard. That's insane. That you literally were working. That's I was there, and I did a video because the night before there was a hurricane. Now I know it's a hurricane. Right.
Eileen, or something like that. It starts with an E.
Yeah.
It's a woman's name, and I recorded it and took a tape with me. It was a tape, DV tape. I took it and then I made a piece that is like 5 minutes long because it's the full footage of a time lapse that I was doing in the building with the rain. It's a beautiful footage. And the next day I was getting so many emails from people like, you're alive, you're okay, da, da, da. And then a friend, I'm no longer her friend because, the vaccine. So she, now I think about it, it's like she blocked me. So, or I don't know, Millet, one of those things that I did in the last years with my social media. So I mean, just completely like, hello to all my ex-friends. So she wrote something, said, uno nunca muere la víspera. It's like, you don't die the day of your eve. I'm so happy you're alive. And it was very poetic, so I said, I'm just going to take that phrase and name the video, You Don't Die on the Eve.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not close to death. It was close, but I didn't die.
Huh. Hurricane Aaron, you were exactly right.
Yes.
And there's definitely something related between that hurricane and the weather and these buildings coming down. My research led me towards the conclusion that it was a controlled demolition of some type, right? Like a steel building has never fallen due to fire. Just thinking about it from like a structural standpoint, like
it's impossible.
If you knock a Jenga tower over, how does it fall? It falls kind of like all over the place. It doesn't go perfectly down one thing by one. But what I ended up realizing is like years later, I came across this woman named Judy Wood. Have you heard of this lady? She did this presentation, and like it's outdated. It's been years, but she talks about how directed energy weapons were used.
Yes.
The evidence that she points to is like steel beams on video. Like you can watch a steel beam as it's falling become dust in the air.
Yes,
That's
what happened.
Right. It's called dustification.
I think I didn't know her name, but
Yeah. So it was. I guess my takeaway was like I thought it was a conspiracy theory, or thought it was like an inside job of some type, but I pointed at the wrong like exact answer. And so it's like taking a step back and realizing like as adamant as I was that it was a controlled demolition, maybe there's other explanations. And at this point, like reading your book too, like nothing's off the table, you know. As far as I'm concerned, if we can imagine it, it can exist. We've got, you know, the drones, the UAPs, all this stuff in the air. It's
everything.
Like we're living in this crazy time, which I want to ask you about because I'm very new to astrology and
mythology,
all of it. Like it's just very new to me, and it's an area of study that I don't actively seek out. Like naturally, just I seek out mountain biking and climbing, and I don't look into astrology. It's just how it is. But because of Bitcoin, I've now gone down this rabbit hole, just like a toe. I've got a toe in the rabbit hole, and a lot of your book, you talk like you'll share anecdotes or stories, and then you'll talk about during that period of time
this was happening,
what was going on. And so I don't want you to explain every single possible variation, but what I do want to ask you is like, we're in this 2025 moving towards 2026.
It's an amazing moment.
This is really what like drew me in during your talk, because you said that there's this shift in how the planets and stars are positioned that is encouraging or like allowing for like a major transition.
Yes.
So maybe just give me a little on that, on just like what we're living through right now.
So 10 days ago, I remember the date, like 2 weeks ago, we have many planets that some of them are closer to Earth and some are more far away. So anything that is closer, like the moon or the sun or Mercury or Venus and Mars, are what we call personal planets. So when we look at our chart or the chart of an event, these are things that are more like have to do with our day to day. Now, anything that is beyond Jupiter and Saturn, which are kind of together, they're what we call social construct planets, because they meet every 20 years and they create a new relationship. So the last time these two met was December 2020. So we're starting, and they met at 0 degrees of Aquarius, which is a very big deal. Because anything that is 0 degrees is like a starting point. And Aquarius is all about the collective. So there's a new social construct about how we have to behave, because this social construct, we talk about behavior and about how we're seeking to find new ways to behave in the next 20 years. So these are planets that they meet more or less every like zero number, so every 1980s, 1960s, 1940s. So if you see the generations going, and if you probably have heard about the fourth turning, we talk about these cycles of 20 years. Now, there's another planet that comes afterwards that is Uranus that takes around 83 years. So when you have 4 cycles of the Saturn and Jupiter, you arrive to a place where Uranus, that is this like, you know, he's the lord of change, his trauma, it's Akashic records, he keeps the memory of not this world but beyond. It's all mythological. So in Greek, Uranus was the king of the skies. And he has Saturn, his son, that kind of castrates him. And I love mythology because they have the most amazing stories, and you're like, why are you trying to keep track of the family genealogy? It's like, oh my God, these people are very promiscuous, they're crazy. Like, I remember in school, it's like, no more myth. It's like, but now I know that they have a representation because we identify, because we're humans, we want to identify with the archetypes, which that word in itself means primal form. So we identify behaviors through mythology, and we all have this curve that we can identify more with this and with that. So going back to the astrology, this Uranus is coming around every 83 years, and this is more or less the age we're living right now. Like a woman and a man live approximately average. That doesn't mean that you cannot die at 30. Of course you can, but it will be like that's it.
Yeah.
Now, the other two planets afterwards, it takes forever, like 165 years or 248. So let's say Neptune, which is a planet that just changed sign. It went to 0 Aries. It went to the beginning of everything, changed last week.
Oh, wow.
This is a big deal. The last time that it went to 0 Aries was the beginning of the Civil War.
Really?
And 165 divided in 2 is Uranus. It's 83, 84.
Okay. Wow.
And then this divided by 4, it's the cycles of the other. So you see, astrology is just a validator of time. Of time, that it depending how you see it. And then 248 is Pluto, and Pluto is a planet that really wants people to be transformed. It's evolution. So when the United States was founded, Pluto was in Capricorn, and then it moved to Aquarius, and this is where we moved last year. So this cycle is there. Neptune just moved to a new one. Uranus is going to move any minute. This year is a very important year because all the outside planets are going to leave and go to another place. So we don't know what is going to happen. We have some memories, we have some information from past times, but we have to kind of put this thing together. Now, what is really peculiar about Neptune, which is about what is real and what is not. Neptune is this, like, let's say, it's Poseidon, which is the lord of the seas. So it's almost like water. You cannot hold water unless you have a container. And it's something that is very elusive, but it can be. So Neptune represents all those parts of ourselves, or in the paradigm, that have to do with illusion and delusion. So if you're too high on Neptune, you're high on drugs, or you don't want to see the reality. You kind of make it up. But it's also very important because it also rules, for instance, the arts and music. So you can also be in touch with something bigger than you through art. So it represents many things. Now, when Neptune is in Pisces, which is its own sign, which is where it has been for the last 14 years, it was going to be the end of a cycle where the last 14 years is all about illusion. So you see social media, what happened? 2018, this planet entered, Fukushima happened, and then Instagram got bought by whatever his name is, Meta, Facebook, and then everybody started, projecting, like cinema, an idea of a persona. Then we have the influencer. So the joke for me is like influencing is not a good thing because an influencer actually becomes a slave of the following. And so there's this game about people pretending to a certain degree to sell something, and people made a lot of money. I'm not against it. It's just like what it created is this fake idea of that you have to create these fake followers, fake content, fake, and now it just came out. So it's almost like they took away the trick, and now we can see, and there's nothing there. Oh, wow. And now we're starting at 0, and it starts with the individual. So now there are going to be like a lot of fake gurus that are going to try very hard, and other people go like, we don't want the gurus, we have to act. So it's so important right now we act with responsibility because that's what we need. That. So this is happening, but there's another planet that is going to happen this summer that is the one that defines reality. That's Saturn. And I love Saturn because I speak a lot about Saturn because Saturn is the authority that we need to have. It's our dad, father. It's one that protects our life, and it's also represented in the skin. It's like it represents life and reality of what we think is real. Not metaphysical, but physical. So Saturn and Neptune are together, riding together, and they meet every 36 years. Last time that they met, the Berlin Wall came down.
You wrote that in your book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then prior to that, it was when China went completely Mao Zedong.
Oh, wow.
Prior to that was 1917. What happened then?
World War
Bolshevik. Yeah, Bolshevik.
Bolshevik Revolution.
Then you go back and you say, oh, isn't there something happening that people don't understand what is reality? And then there's all this idea of collectivism. Because it's about to go into another realm, and this is where we are. So I knew that's why I got really curious about socialism and trying to understand, because I said people just don't see it. Because the reality is very diffuse, and so they're thinking empathy, but they're not really becoming accountable and responsible. That's my criticism with socialism. It's like, they want the government to intervene so they can have safety, but they're willing to do zero. And that's when I go like, no, I'm not going to give you for my food. Go and get a job, And so it happens. This is repetition. So when I look at the cycles, which I love doing, we have opportunities to see, oh, that happened before. It's not that we're going to repeat it, but there's a tendency. So one thing that I speak there, which I think was great, and I'm going to write more in my second book, is about Dante. I really recommend people to read Divine Comedy. It's one of the best books ever. And for me, he was like a Bitcoiner in essence.
Oh, wow.
He was against religion. He was more pro-monarchy. Actually wrote a piece called Monika, and he's basically, he writes these books in he's into numerology and very much metaphysical, but he's really making a clear description of corruption in Italy through banking, because his family was also banking. So it's interesting how we are repeating that in different forms, in different cycles. So we have the opportunity again to talk about corruption, and the choices are we're going to keep on looking at the other side. So that's the choice we have. And the next cycle, we can make it great, or we can just go and say, all right, we go back to the beginning of the first cycle, and it doesn't matter. So, yeah.
The stakes are very high.
Yes.
For sure. I was just thinking about that the other day. I had this tweet that nobody liked. I don't get very many likes on my tweets anyways, but that's okay. I was like, you're sitting at a poker table with your friends. Everyone's got $20 on the game.
Yeah.
Everyone's having fun. You're playing cards, and then someone taps you and they're like, actually, your whole life savings is on the line and you can't leave. Sorry. Oh, wow. And that's life, right?
Yes,
like
yes.
You realize at a certain point, they say every man lives two lives. The second one begins when he realizes he has just one.
Just one, yeah.
It's just the stakes have never been higher, and I'm optimistic.
Yes.
There's definitely the area that I've been sort of just starting to get more aware of is just the non-physical negative entities that may exist in this world.
Yeah, very important.
And it's a very slippery slope, like with psychedelics or with a lot of this new age type of stuff. It's
very
like
important.
How do you think about that? Like, are we living in this world? The way I kind of think about it is like almost like a war over souls.
100%.
Like souls can be drawn into the negative or the positive in some way, or how do you think about that?
I think that it's very important to always have guidance. I think that's why people have teachers. That's why knowledge and wisdom is going down the line through lineage. So it's about finding the right teacher at the right time. And I really, honestly, don't respect people that say they can do it by themselves. I'm like, oh, wow, so you're a Superman or Superwoman, because I wouldn't do that. But I think it's important to find guidance in all kinds of forms. So, for instance, I'm not against psychedelics. I haven't done them. I would never do them because I went through a different path. But for what's important, I think, and I've seen horrendous stories with it, is that people don't actually hold on to it in a way that they're ready to integrate it. Because it's not about what you see, it's how you're going to integrate, because sometimes you're shown things that you're not ready. And if you don't know how to tap into that, then it could be a horror story, or you can take the meaning and then create another reality based on what you think, but not what it is. So I think that's it's very important to have like a partnership with somebody, or do it in a place where you're really taken care of, and it's not just a party or something like that, or a Burning Man, whatever. Like it's so important. So I think that, again, responsibility there, because yes, energies work, and we're all wavelengths. We are made out of frequencies. So you attract what you emit. So if you're attracting fear, you're going to get a lot of fearful people. If you're enraged all the time, you will be more, with people who are whiners or people who's like, yeah, let's go and do this. And so I'm very attentive of my energy and my surroundings, and I'm very open. So I learned a long time ago to be very protective of my energy. One is like not speaking without knowing if I can trust people. So I can speak about certain things or not. I will always say jokes and try to I'll throw something to see how far it can go, and then I'll read around and go like, yeah, this is not the place for me. But
I'll do the same thing. I do it in the sauna. It's the spot. I walk in the sauna. I'm like, all right, guys. So who's got the best conspiracy today?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone just like, you're the conspiracy crazy guy. Sometimes they buy in, and there's those questions that can give you a pulse check on where
you kind of measure. So I learned to do that since I was little, and then I work with incredible people that they taught me how to use my energy and how not get depleted, because you can be depleted. I listen to things, I'm very intuitive, so I also learn how to detect if what I'm listening is true or it's just a hoax, because you can make it up. So that helped me to clean up from any substances. I used to smoke a lot of weed, which I loved, but then it was really allowing me to attract the wrong energy. And I started getting more paranoid and stuff like that. And then one day, started doing martial arts in 20-something years ago. And it was just a question, should I smoke before meditation or after? And I was like, what a stupid question. So I just basically
gave it up.
Yeah, but without even thinking. I was like, this is a stupid question. Of course, meditation. And so I've been a deep meditator. It's been a couple of years that I've done. I don't know if you probably heard about the getaway experience.
No.
Oh my God, it's great. So there's these tapes that were used by the CIA, to do remote viewing.
Okay.
And out-of-body experience.
Okay.
And it was another Bitcoiner that gave me the tips, Andres. He's a good friend, so I'm just going to give him a shout out. But he gave me the whole thing, and actually we have a group of Bitcoiners that we meditate on Mondays, and we're going through the things. And it was incredible. The first time I did it, I don't know what that was, a year and a half ago or something, probably 2 years, but I don't remember. I did it, and I started getting a lot of downloads. And what I got was numbers. So I got a number, 1440, and I'm like, but these are the minutes of the day. So I ask, because I ask, is this time? Yes. Is it minutes? No. Days? Yes. Okay, hold on, let me write it down. And then I said, what do I do? He says, divided by 3. Okay, 480. Should I go backward or forward? Both. And then I said, what else? He goes, keep on meditating. So as soon as I finished the meditation, it was revealed. And so I looked from that day on. The day forward is January 26, 2028, which is going to be a huge eclipse that is going to be very important for this country, but also in my chart. This is the moment that Pluto comes into my ascendant. This happens, and I'm like, oh, I'm getting ready for that. This is good, because this is like a new kind of beginning. And I'm not afraid of uncertainty, actually. I'm kind of crazy, because I'm looking forward, weird stuff's happening. So I'm crazy that way. And then when I look back at the date, backwards, it was the beginning of the pandemic. And I was like, oh, so this is an initiation, and I'm halfway through it? Yes. So then the 480 days is going to be June 15 and October 10th of 2026. So I have been given direction of what to do. So the beginning, they told me, or I heard, get a lot of information, get educated. The things that gives you passion, get it. So I was like, okay, more Austrian economics. I'm studying the Constitution, natural law. I'm really diving into something that is so important. If let's say that there's a zero moment in society, and we're going to start again, I have studied certain laws that they can be applicable. So I'm going to bring that knowledge. Some people are going to bring arms, some other people are going to bring how to eat, how to cook. Yeah. But I thought, I can bring that kind of knowledge. I can bring astrology, I can bring all this. So I'm studying like crazy, really. So I asked that, and then I said, what happens next? And I said, well, then you will have to figure out where is that. But I'm not worried, because I don't know if I'm not looking for a tribe, but kind of knowing. And then the third round is when society really changes. It's we're ready. So I do feel that it's not that the world's going to end, but for certain people it is, because they're not ready for what is happening. They're already not ready.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm not too worried about them, because I realize that if I do, then I'm gonna forget. And this is something you said before. It's like we have to keep on being creative. Like I wrote something on Twitter, or I don't know what, Facebook 2 days ago, about how the markets are really a mirror of our own sentiment. So yes, they're gonna be volatile because nobody knows where we're going. So why do you stick with the price? Just go back, keep stacking, and be fucking creative. Keep on creating beauty, because that's what you want to make. So I'm I'm very positive, optimistic. My blog is called I'm Optimist. So
Yes, I am optimist. Yes.
I'm optimist.
I love it. I'm definitely an optimist as well, but I do have this sense that most Bitcoiners in the last 6 months, call it, have been on the euphoria train. Not all, but many, especially those who are relatively new. It's like, hey, we won. Bitcoin's becoming digital reserve, or the global reserve asset, or it's the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Some of these things that like you could just be like kind of get apathetic, right? Yeah. It's like we don't need to do action. We don't need to do anything because we just stack our sats, hold it, and we're chill. But I have this, and this is why I'm doing what I do with my life, is because I'm making a documentary film about Bitcoin this year, doing this podcast, because I just think the hardest days are ahead. Like, I don't think Bitcoin is out of the, like, I don't think...
No. And we have to, basically we have to know that there's always an adversary, and it will be like the people who still want to cling to a system. Mm-hmm. That's the adversary. Not that I'm thinking paranoid, but more like, okay, just... First of all, this is one question I have, and for the last few months, I actually wrote about it, and I was like so happy I did. I said, if everything is a hoax since I was born, because pretty much everything.
It seems like that these days.
And then Bitcoin is a hoax as well. How do I feel? And so I was really meditating on that. And then I wrote something that said something like, okay, let's say it is a hoax. Okay, I'm willing to risk being wrong.
Absolutely.
And when I said that, I wrote it, I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Because I have the responsibility to acknowledge that it was my bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it. I'll say, hey, nobody forced me, but I'm willing to risk that. And until then, I'm not going to question it.
Right.
But it is the question.
It's a healthy question to ask.
Yes.
Right.
So there's no savior. Nobody's going to come.
Yeah.
No Bitcoin reserve or whatever is going to go. No, because at the very end, I still have to make decisions. I can always go and say one day, oh, I'm afraid, and sell all my stack just because I'm afraid. Like, so many things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
I took time to learn, like, first is like, how does it work? Like, how does it really, really work? And then it's like, I remember, I don't know, years ago, I think it was Lynn Alden, she says, you're not a Bitcoiner until you don't have a miner and a node. And I was like, okay, wait.
Miner and a node?
Yeah,
oh,
I was like, okay. And so I was like, okay, so I got a miner and a node, and I was like, okay. But then I got into it, and I'm like, I understand, and I got into mining, like really understanding, and like in the conferences that I was going, that will be the place where I will sit down and ask questions. And I was like, really love the idea of mining.
Yeah.
And security, I love the work of Bob Burnett.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he talks about, it's at the level that I connect to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very personal, and how you can be responsible for the network that way. So I thought, okay, I love that. And then it's like, okay, there's another layer that is about really the value of money. And this is why I'm starting to talk more about it, because I think that every Bitcoiner will benefit from understanding Austrian economics. And every Austrian in the school will understand Bitcoin, because they're really married together. So that's where I'm like really focused right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, what else can I do? I mean, there's so much, but another thing that I changed my perspective in the last probably 6-7 weeks, even a little bit more, is like, I don't want to talk about what is not working anymore. I'm exhausted. I want to be creative. So I changed my tone. Because I was, at one point, it gets very addictive to go like, this thing is not working, this thing. And then it's like every day. And so I gained so many followers in Bitcoin,
I bet you've had some viral memes and tweets, and Instagram too. You're pretty active.
No, and Instagram, I got a lot of people that were, but they were like, eh.
Yeah.
And then it was exhausting. And I was trying to open a conversation. So now I choose very well, like if there's something I could say, like the other day, there's something about the art market. And whenever I can, I just really throw this to the people in the art market, because they're so clueless about money. And now they're saying, oh, we're not selling. I was like, hey, we're not selling. Of course you're not selling. You don't even start the market. Like, come on, guys. Like, because now they're blaming everything on the tariffs. Oh, we're not selling because of Trump. So it's so easy. So, but I'm not engaged in that anymore. I felt the need a few weeks ago that the energy was going to change. And so the change is less from like the illusion of the delusion and being upset by the delusion and conspiracy theories. And more like, okay, let's say that we accept that this is an illusion. Now what? We accept it. Now what? So now I'm going to show up as this is a life I want to do. And yes, I'm going to teach, I'm going to do, and then, I mean, I'm here in Seattle installing an art commission piece in woke land, like, and I have not lost a single minute opportunity to talk to the installers, to the person who runs the program, just asking questions. How are you? I'm like, I'm great. I just come from Dallas, Bitcoin conference, and they immediately was like, everybody like, what?
Right.
And I go, yeah, I go to those, I talk about this. So I just find the opportunity, and some people are more open, some other people are curious, some people are completely, like, I'm completely nuts. But I don't care, because I want to be able to understand and see where everybody is. And if they're open, yeah, we can have a dialogue. But it has to be, I have to feel like a sense of responsibility that people want to have to invest time in themselves to learn more. That's why I really give myself to that. If not, I'm not going to save them at all.
Totally. I had a chiropractor in Mexico when I lived there, and he said he came to the same conclusion. He's like, if you just want your back cracked, I'm not the guy for you. If you want to come here and work together on healing, then I'm the guy, right?
Yeah, the responsibility and accountability.
And your time being so scarce and valuable, you can only allocate it,
to
so
X
much.
amount, yeah.
Yeah, so of course you should pick the people that, actually are at least showing that they're interested, right? And I love it when someone's interested about Bitcoin, Like
yes.
When you say the word Bitcoin, you can look at their eyes and you get about a split second, you just know exactly how they feel about it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, what's the podcast about? Oh, well, it's called We Are Satoshi, Bitcoin, whatever I say. And like you just get either the rolled eyes or just like the lean in, like, wait, what? Yeah. I've heard about that. Like,
so how do you feel? Can I ask you one thing?
Yeah.
How do you feel about what Saylor says that Satoshi is Prometheus? Because I am a little bit against that.
I like the idea of maybe you can correct my understanding of it, but Prometheus gave people fire.
Okay, so Prometheus is a Titan.
Okay.
So he's a human.
And he eats the chaos and that whole thing.
No, but the thing is this is why I don't think that Saylor is right. So Prometheus is a Titan, so he has to live among the human. He's not a god, but he does to the gods, and he steals the fire, and he gets punished. Theos doesn't like that. So the punishment is you're going to, for the rest of your life, you're going to be attached to that rock, and there's going to be an eagle going to come every day and going to eat your liver. Your liver is the only organ that can be reproduced, so you're stuck. And because you're not supposed to give enlightenment to people, you see, people are supposed to be stupid. They're NPCs anyway, so you're not going to enlighten. So the interesting thing is like the light represents the fire, creative fire, and it represents liberation.
Okay.
So it represents like you're illuminated, you see the truth, you can actually see something, and then you can do something about it. So he's basically allowing humanity to say, you can evolve, but it depends on you. Now I'm going to steal it, show you, and I'm going to sacrifice myself for that. Now, so that's why it's there. But then there's this other guy that I really love in mythology, it's called Chiron, which represents that vulnerability that we have. So the place where we don't feel complete and we feel a bit awkward, not so courageous, blah, blah, blah. Everybody has a different placement for that. But Chiron has a different story. He's born from Saturn and a nymph, that when she was making love to Saturn, she became a horse. And then she disappeared. And then when she has Chiron, he's like this half a thing. And she's like, and she rejects. So the feeling that we have of being vulnerable sometimes and being awkward is that feeling of Chiron. And all is fine until one day you feel that feeling again, and that happens at times that people, situations, or things remind us of that vulnerability. And that's when sometimes we just don't want to show up, because it's like, weird. So Chiron represents that part of ourselves that eventually is going to give us the power to be very strong about it once you confront it. But it's that part of ourselves that we don't want to deal with that. So Chiron gets a second arrow. Like he not a second arrow. He has the pain of being rejected, but then things happen in the Olympus, and he gets an arrow that is poison in his leg, and he's an immortal. He's not a Titan. He's an immortal. So he's stuck with his pain all his life, as Prometheus is stuck because the liver is reproducing. So there's a similarity there, like the sacrifice you have to do for doing something. So Chiron is very intelligent, and he goes to Zeus, and he goes, I'm willing to give him my life. Yeah, but you're going to die, because you don't understand how great that is. I won't have to have the pain. Mm-hmm. So that's why he's called forgot the name, the blah, 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 the wounded healer. That's his name. So he gives his life, and so Prometheus is taking outside of the chains, and he keeps on being fine, and Chiron becomes part of this constellation of Sagittarius. But the interesting thing is that Saylor talks about Satoshi being Prometheus, but Satoshi right now lives in the realm of the gods, or he's not here.
Right.
He did the first thing, so I don't think he is Prometheus. I think that Bitcoin is Prometheus, because Bitcoin is illumination, and Bitcoin needs to have somebody acting on it. Bitcoin doesn't exist for you if you don't make action. It's there, but it's not there. You know what I mean? So I think it's a proactive thing that we have to do. We have to have action with Bitcoin if we want Bitcoin to work for us. It can be there, abstract for somebody else, but you need the action. And Satoshi already created it, but he is not Bitcoin. He did his act.
Yeah.
He gave it.
Satoshi's the guy that made the eagle eat the liver, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah, he could be more, for me, it's more like in the realm of the gods, that he's kind of there. He creates, the gods always create stuff and then they go away. They have like a representation somewhere, and they're in the Olympus, so you kind of, I'm not saying that we should pray to Satoshi, but we're thankful, of that idea.
Totally.
Yeah, that it was amazing, and that he came up with, or him or them. I mean, who knows, or the aliens, I don't know, whatever it was. Yeah. It's just there. But Bitcoin in itself is the one that is alive inside of ourselves.
Okay.
So it's a light, it's that primal fire that we need. Yeah. And right now we're living in that time where the primal fire is inside of us. So what are we going to do with that fire? Are you going to burn yourself, or are you going to keep yourself warm and create something? And that's where we are right now.
I love it. Thank you for explaining that, because I've heard the Prometheus analogy, but it's one of those things I just kind of accept. Oh, it just means that he made fire, whatever. It's Bitcoin. There's a lot of things that become common in language among the hyper Bitcoinized people, like the hardcore Bitcoiners, that the normal people that are new to it, they're like, what are they talking about? Yeah. So I really appreciate you explaining that. And I think that makes sense. I wonder what his just incentives are, right? I look at Saylor and I think, obviously, incredibly smart guy, articulates Bitcoin as good as anyone, if not better, right? He's amazing. But he's very focused on Bitcoin does not compete with the dollar. Bitcoin is capital. It's not currency.
It's not a medium of exchange.
It's not a medium of exchange, which...
So this is interesting thing. It's like when I'm interested in a character, or I'm observing somebody, I kind of observe behavior, and I go I wonder what he's projecting. Like, for instance, lately I saw that he has these memes that are really funny, and I always say, does he see himself like that, or he's actually being projected? Is he aware of that, or he's using that? So I'm always very curious about how people project themselves as personas, and how much of that is unconscious and how much is calculated, and that says a lot to me about the person. And this is one thing, I don't idealize people in general, but I am aware of how much idealization is there. And to be ideal means that you are really projecting something outside of yourself, and you're putting into the realm of the gods, or something that you have to go and do like that. I have no heroes, I have no idols. Even when I studied all kinds of metaphysics, I did study with teachers, but then give me the info and then I'm gone. And so I do see there's a lot of projection from people making him into a God figure. But then how he responds is interesting because he kind of plays that game. He's super self-aware. So I knew he was an Aquarian from the very beginning because I kind of Googled him and I was like, oh, February 4th, 1965. So the first thing that I noticed is that I'm older than him. I was like, we're same generation, 6 months. And I go, okay, so there's something about our generation that I have that embedded in my DNA because we come as groups. So I was okay. I know a lot of people from that year, 65. And so I was like, oh, maybe they're going through this and that. So I was trying to look for patterns in his behavior before Bitcoin that could actually tell more about the character that he's right now. Because he was not born yesterday. He's been around. For sure. And he had gone here and there. So I started kind of like figuring out. And one of the things that I figured out was like there's this distance that he has. This like almost disconnection that is emotional. He's just like this. And he's almost like a machine. All great. So I thought, okay, this is Aquarian energy that is more about disassociation, disembodied. Like there's something there, almost mechanical. He's really good with ideas, but where is his heart? Like I want to see the humanity of it. I'm not saying that he's not human, but it's like, so when I found out he was an Aquarius, I was like, oh, interesting. The chart of Bitcoin has a lot of Aquarius in it. And Aquarius in evolutionary astrology always talks about a part of ourselves that is been broken and we need to repair. So I have this theory that a lot of Bitcoiners, we're living in this like state of consciousness that we have a lot of Aquarius energy, and every chart that I've done, here it is. So it's almost like we came already with a memory of having done other stuff in other lives where we broke the rules or the rules were broken. Everything got broken, so the memory is like, it's not to fix it, but we understand that there's another way. And when we see Bitcoin, we go, oh, this is the way. So we see Bitcoin as a vehicle to actually compensate whatever we didn't do. Like maybe me, I took advantage of power, I misbehaved, whatever happens. And so we all have that. And so Bitcoin comes as this like amazing opportunity, and we see it because it's technology. Aquarius is also technology, so it's a technology that we can use to evolve, and we recognize it immediately. Not everybody does, but when you do, you go like, no brainer. So that's what I see, a repetition of that. Now, charts progress with time, and so Bitcoin this year, March, I think it was 10th, it progressed from being a Capricorn to Aquarius. So we're really in this moment, and I knew I wrote an article 3-4 months ago about what was going to be the problems with Bitcoin this year in terms of I saw that there needs to be more accountability because there's it's not going to be a war against it, but there's too much expectation, so government is going to be there, and we're seeing it right now. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like, as you said before, people are projecting like, oh, it's going to save us. No, it isn't, because Bitcoin is not that authority that is over you. You give that authority to Bitcoin. So do you want it to be the same authority that you give into your state that is, oppressing you or taking advantage of you? So is this relationships what I'm really interested. So that's what I've seen. Many Bitcoiners, all of them, they have something with Aquarius. And I laugh every time I do another chart. It's like, oh, here it is. So it's the memory that we're carrying, that we remember from past lives, that we ought to do something for the collective, but not as collective, as individuals.
That's the key, right?
That's the key. Not confused. We're not going to hold hands. Forget it.
It's not about going to the streets and breaking. No. I just drove past the East Precinct of Seattle, the police department, the one that burned down. I was literally just driving by. The light fixtures, I don't think they ever replaced them because they're literally burned. Like you can see it. Anyways, tangent. But I 100% agree. And not to go just promote the documentary I'm doing, but it's all about that. It's like build on Bitcoin is what it's called. And I've learned a lot from the people that I'm working with. They're Bulgarians. Oh, nice. And there's all these Bitcoin holders, people that may call themselves Bitcoiners, but they're not builders. Those people, love to have them on the team. Glad you're pumping the bags and stacking your sats. But the people that really make change are the ones that are building. And
they're acting.
They're taking action, totally. And it can be small action. It's not like I'm trying to start the next competitor to MSTR.
No.
You know, it's like, let me start a walk in my local community. Just, let me just do more. That's a common thing I've seen with Bitcoiners is you get to this point in your journey where you're like, you realize, Jeff Booth says he calls himself a hypocrite. I realized I was a hypocrite. I realized the same thing. I was like, I need to allocate my time and energy in that direction.
Yes.
And
to make sense.
It just logically makes a ton of sense.
It needs to have, like, that's why I put first, it's you understand what your needs are. So it's essential, like food and shelter. Then those needs are going to be valuable. And then once you have the value that is objective, then you have the meaning. So if you have arrived to the point that what your needs are, and then they give you value, then the meaning is like the direction and the purpose.
Okay, so I wrote something down about this. This is very aligned with your talk probably in Dallas, the value of scarce time. And the quote that I took from your book is, despite the inherent non-existence of time itself, our perception often vacillates between envisioning it as boundless and the practical recognition that in reality we should regard it as scarce. So meaning arises from the value that you assign to it and begins with your needs. I think it's a good it's a good question to just ask yourself, what do I need? I went through this process in October, November timeframe where I was kind of a little bit aimless, not really sure what 2025 looked like. What am I going to do? It's a new year. I have no job. What am I going to do? And so I had one of my mentors tell me, hey, there's this practice. You can journal on one question every single day for 30 days.
Nice.
What do you really want?
Yeah.
It's the same question. What do I need? It's ultimately you realize there's a difference between wants and needs. What do I need and what do I want? You want a lot, but what do you really need? And so, I think that's just a good question to align your actions and your values.
Yes.
If your actions and your values are aligned, to me, that's success. Like almost
100%.
To your point on the difference between achievement versus purpose.
Yes.
Like I find purpose in doing this. It doesn't really matter how successful, like achievement wise, like we're not going to win a Grammy by doing this podcast.
Why not?
But
the thing is like we are so, achievement for me is outside of ourselves. And then purpose is something that really drives you, and it's something that is like a passion that you believe in, and you're going to every day put something in it. You're plant a seed and then it grows, and with time maybe you can achieve a lot, maybe without thinking you get a Grammy or whatever it is. But those achievements for me, especially being in New York for so long, that was the part where I realized that it was fake, because no matter how much I was doing it, but the representation of it was not really aligned with the feeling. So it's like, am I doing something wrong? Because I don't care really about that approval. I've been always not running away from recognition, but I don't care. And it's not that I don't care about money and wealth, but not that way. Like, I'm not going to do anything for it, because I know that I will sacrifice my freedom. So I know the difference. And I really couldn't care less about recognition. And this is something like, for instance, in New York, everybody's really looking for that status. And I respect. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm better than them, but my chart is like, that's not what I want. I actually want to be able to create and be fulfilled with this validation for myself. And basically, the only thing that I ask for every day is like, give me the wisdom to be able to create something that is going to inspire other people. So I'm aiming for inspiration, not influence. And this is the difference. Influence is to have power over people. So I'm going to be attached to you because I have to make everything so you like me, and in response to me, so I'm influencing you, but I'm going to be the slave of the other. But when I inspire, which I really love the etymology of it, is like inspiration comes from breathing. So I'm actually breathing, and by my breath and being aware of it, I can inspire you, because my breath includes creativity, includes everything that I'm doing. So I will be inspirational, and that for me is the greatest connection to God, is when you can inspire to be something and creativity. So that's my aim every day, to be able to be connected to something bigger and be a vessel and be of service. When I realized that be of service, I was like, I started saying it. I think I read about it in the book like automatically, and one day it's like, somebody asked me, it's like, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to stop saying this and this and that, and I'm going to start embodying it. And the moment that, oh, yes, I have to be walk the walk and just not talking. So that changed for me. Also, because I think the most important thing that happened to me in the pandemic is like I moved the perspective of where I was, and I joined groups that I never in my life. And that's why for me right now with Bitcoin is much more easy, because normally I would have gone like a little bit more shy, like, yeah, these people, I don't know, like, they look like weirdos, like, or whatever, like, what am I going to talk to them? Like, I will be more self-conscious about it. And because I joined many online groups that they were all about questioning meaning and reality, that's how I found like a lot of practices that I didn't think that I will. So I got into trauma, got into nonviolent communication, and I just found so much value in all these things. And so naturally Bitcoin arrived, and I was like, okay, another group volunteering, like, how am I going to do this? And it's great. Now, what I've seen is that I was in all those groups that I was before Bitcoin. I tried to bring them Bitcoin, and very few people were open to it. So I'm like, okay, guys, I cannot stay in this group too long because you guys are like, I don't know, complaining too much, and see ya. And, it's funny because they come back sometimes and they go, what is this thing? And I'm like, I don't have a lot of patience because they're still questioning that maybe there's another way. One of these groups, very big group, and right now they're trying, and this is my criticism, is like they're trying to find other, right now social media changed a lot. So people with the election, there's anti-X and Facebook is only, I call it, I don't go there anymore, but I used to call it like how do you call the place where all the geriatric ward? That's what I used to call it.
Playing bridge around the...
These people are in another thing, but they all left to do this blue sky. And then they found Substack, which I hated because I used to write on Substack, and now it's like another thing full of lefties and stuff like that. I'm like, So people are like looking for this shelter. People are looking. And then what I read in these feeds is people are like, we have the next Kool-Aid. And I'm like, no, there is no Kool-Aid. And but sometimes we sound like that with Bitcoin, so I get it. So the interesting is like this group of people, intellectual, semi-intellectual, they're saying, we found the best way to deal with the next civilization. And I'm like, I'm interested. So I'm starting to read a little bit. And then I go like, what about economics? And then when I read about economics, what they're planning is like, I get very frustrated. So I write and I go like, guys, just read Creature from Chicken Light. Like, all I'm saying is like, if you're going to start talking about economics, don't talk BS. Start reading and get real. And they get very defensive. It's like, ooh, Trump. And I'm like, it's nothing to do with Trump. So I don't think that people are ready to do that. So in a way, it's like, okay, I'll let them be. So I stop talking that much.
Yeah, I kind of go through phases with it. Sometimes, the orange pilling. Like, I was thinking about this on my drive over here, actually. Like, why do Bitcoiners feel this need to proselytize Bitcoin or to preach the good word of Bitcoin, right? And I'm not joking. Like, I really think it's like I've experienced it. Like, you find maybe other people with religion or something, they find what they have found to be the ticket to truth or some missing piece that gave them meaning, and they want other people to experience that too. It comes from a good place. But
I have a point with that. It's like, if you have to talk too much about it, it's because also yourself are in need to listen to it. Now, there's a difference when you basically kind of not talk all the time about it, but say, okay, how can it's still of my interest, Bitcoin and everything. How can I open a dialogue and see what the other people, like, what are they thinking? Because right now my life without Bitcoin doesn't exist. So I don't even remember how it was without it. So that's why I'm curious and making jokes about like being here and everything, and see how they're dealing with this idea of what's going on. Like, what is it that they're seeing? What apart from like saying that everything is blah blah blah's fault, I just want to know that there's other, and I'm curious and I'm asking, and I'm learning a lot that my life has changed so much is because I changed point of view. I actually left New York. I went to Miami. I got into all these courses, started volunteer. That was a big deal for me for the volunteering because it just, like me, I moved. And by moving, my perspective changed. And I actually did a piece about it. I did a piece for the East Boston Police Department that it was, I was doing these hanging sculptures where in order for you to experience, you have to move around. And that's when I understood, oh, you know, changing perspective is not just physical, it's everything. And if you open up, you have something that the Buddhists call beginner's mind. And that's the biggest, like if you want to practice the virtue of humility, that's the one. When you say, I don't know everything. Can you show me? And that for me was, because I did act many years while in New York, pretend that I knew everything. You become a pretender.
In the business world, it's the same thing, because if you ask the question, now you're seen as you don't have the answer, right?
Yes.
That hurts the organization, that hurts you. It's just not good. But if you ask the question, you're in a culture that's gonna like stifle that.
Yeah.
You just learn the hard way, right? And someone says, well, that guy doesn't know anything. He's always asking questions. Like, don't ask questions that you can answer on Google. But if it's
but it's the whole thing about fake it till you make it.
Yes, I wrote that down in the book.
Oh, wow.
Fake it till you make it. That's almost
it's a be pretend, and it's funny because there was a moment, you know, I don't watch any more movies or anything, but it's a moment there were like all these documentaries about that the 2010s, which is New York was full of that, all this celebrity thing, the Kardashian, like there was like an explosion of people that seemed to have made it into some sort of stardom, and then you're like, do I have to follow that? Like I remember going like, where are these people? Do I have to follow that? And then people saying yes because this and this and that, and then you go, but they're all fake. What are they trying to say? So that's when I thought, oh my God, people are so concerned about the pretense and the influence they have. They don't care what they're saying. It's the influence. Oh, I don't know how many followers. And it's funny, I have a nephew, he's an influencer, he earns a lot of money. He's into sports and stuff like that. He's a, trainer, whatever. And I'm happy for him. He's 30 years old, but like, I don't know. He's doing a lot of inner work. I mean, it's not that he's just wasting his time, but it's like, it's a different kind of generation for me to think. Or many people who did a lot of money through YouTube, which is a very different thing. And but that's why I like podcasts when they're long form, because it's not just selling an idea of 3-minute reel, but it's actually opening up and being real.
Totally. That's also why I love Nostr. It's like the decentralized social media that can't be censored.
Yeah.
Just followed you on there.
Yeah,
and,
I was just following you there. I have to keep, like, the thing is, this is like, at one point it's like, I don't want to do that much, and then I go, okay, yeah, just put it there. So I throw things here and there, but it's pretty much,
It's, everyone's going to get it when the time is right. It's one of those things that it's like so early that there's just, it's not as active, right? You go to Twitter, that's the place to be when it comes to just online discourse.
I go to Twitter to make sure that we're still alive.
What's that?
That we're still alive. Oh, the world is still alive. Oh, right.
Yeah.
We're fucked.
Yeah.
It's my news feed. So it's like, oh, we're still alive. Oh, everything is fucked, but we're still alive. And then the other ones is like, okay, people are still doing crazy stuff here.
Yeah.
Like Instagram is a weird place right now because it's just like buy me. It's like a shopping mall.
It totally is. Yeah.
It is. So sometimes it's funny because sometimes I will click on something being curious, and then I get 100 ads.
Yeah.
So it's like, why did I click that thing? I shouldn't fall for that. But I don't go to Facebook. Substack became this horrendous thing. I was really well. They have the notes that is feed. I do write. I do write.
Oh, they have a Twitter-like feed now.
Yeah, it's called Notes, and so people are just coming with it instead of, because Substack is really about writing, and so I used to read a lot of that, but now it's like it's full of spam, and it's you do the magic.
As we move, the lights turn on and off. That camera angle still looked good when it was dark. So
okay, good. Yeah, we're gonna have like some tricks here, and So I'm thinking, for instance, I write every week. I've been writing for 3 years, constant. I wrote all my life, but every week it was more like something for me. I write, and that's when I started the book, like asking questions and the thing. It's like that, and started having like system how to write. So I've been into AI for a while, so I created assistants and agents, so I have like really support in many things that I do, because I do a lot. That's why I'm a polymath. So I can be doing like a whole piece like I did here, and I'm doing another piece big, and then I'm writing another book, and then I can write about Bitcoin. Like I can do, because I have different parts of my brain, and I just created ways of being very effective with that. And I still go out every day and I walk 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
That's when I write, because I dictate.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I dictate, and
I love that.
I'm having conversations.
Yeah.
And then I have conversations, and I go this and that. So they have, like, I have directives of where everything goes. And then I kind of, end of the week, I'll pick up the stuff and I go, yeah. It's a little bit like creating my art. I put a lot of information and then I do edits.
That's really interesting. I need a better system. Like, I'm working on it. I use OneNote. It's like syncs to my computer. All my notes are in there, and then I can have it on my phone too. I'll even be riding my bike, and I'll go on the voice to text. And so I'll be riding up a hill, and an idea will come to me, and too many times I've just been like, that's a really good idea. I'm in the middle of a bike ride, so there it goes, and it's gone, and I never think about it again.
You got to do it right.
You have to capture that stuff.
So what I did was I created some assistants on GPT. I'm really interested in like what the meaning of that is. So when I understood what the GPT was, it was like a generative pre-program. Yeah, it's pre-programmed transformer. So basically what you do is like it is up to you to generate, which is to create, something that is being pre-trained is the word. Pre-trained.
Right. Pre-trained transformer.
Transformer.
Yeah.
So, and what is transformer? It's a vessel. So what you're creating is something that is being pre-trained, that you have to train, but it's being pre-trained so you train. And what it's going to generate is something that is going to be transforming whatever you're saying. But you have to know how to do that. So because I'm very interested in language and cognition, I've been kind of going back and forth and saying, I've been writing a little bit about it, and maybe it's going to make it into the book, or maybe it's just a substack. So it is another way of inquiry when you train your assistant, because you're basically creating something that is a mirror of you, if you know how to do it. Because the problem is a lot of people, it requires time. So a lot of people just want to ask ChatGPT instead of going to the shrink, they do that. There's nothing wrong with that, but who is responding really? My question is like, who is helping you integrate something, some random thing, or are you going to base it on something? Mm-hmm. So I think this is a responsibility of understanding, like, who's at the other side? Is it you, a mirror of you, or something else? And so what are you building? And the more we know about AI in the sense of like we're creating like duplicates of ourselves. But if we're not responsible, what we're going to create is monsters. Because they're still there. You're putting it out there. So I have become more like very purposeful with it, and know, okay, I also have names, so I have different assistants for different things, and it's working. Like one of the first ones that I created, because I study financial charts, is create one that I do the analysis every morning, and I go, okay, go through it and tell me what's missing. So it started really more like helping me correct the language, because I will be very fast, and it says no. Grammar also with that. Mm-hmm. And it's good, because every day I was just reading 3-4 times a day, and the best practice. So I train somebody to train me.
Okay.
With the book, I created agents, which is a little bit more complex, where I can ask the GPT to go somewhere, Notion or whatever, go to the Google Doc, whatever, and transpose things. So by the time I'm back in the office or in the studio, everything is in itself. So, but wow. It's just language.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's possible. The thing is, a lot of people are getting distracted because there are many apps that are coming out.
Yeah.
So I would always recommend go and study the basics for sure, and don't be distracted. Just create something out of it and see the potential, and then ask questions. So I think that everybody, telling people what to do, but it is an incredible place right now we are, because I'm also seeing potential of AI in Bitcoin like big time. Big time. So, but we need to be acting on it, not just passively asking questions. Or you can tell if AI wrote a text, for instance, but you can also kind of make it into your own voice. So mine, for instance, I have different tones for different things. So if it's for all the projects, they know exactly when I say, okay, this for Mike, blah 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 blah. It knows exactly the tone. I educated in this way.
Wow.
And it asked me, so do you want to be assertive, or you want to be, no, I want to just, 20 words, no, just what it is. So it's great. Other stuff for work, like they have on the memory everything that I've done since the beginning, my texts, things that people have written about me and stuff like that. So,
and you've put that stuff in there?
Yeah, you have to create it. It's the work that you
Takes
have to
time.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but you just create it. You create all the scripts and stuff like that, these prompts, and then you feed it in and you have it there. And then when you have it there, you already start creating something new, because you're going to use it for something. So it has my book. Now it has like a lot of information of a lot of stuff that I want to do. So we always, when I'm writing an article, I go, and it asks me, is this going to Substack? Is this your second book, or you want to keep it in this codex that I write? And I go, yeah, well, we can use this first part, and I also have it read it to me. So
really?
I'm walking, I'm reading. It's like having an assistant. It is an assistant. So I'm like, I don't like that part. It goes, okay, because I'm very particular about words. So I just treat it, and the way I train it is like, because I used a lot of real assistants in the past, and I learned to delegate, and it was just the most difficult thing for me at the very beginning was to train somebody to do something that I needed without making the person feel that I'm the super boss, because I can be very bossy. But so I was training them.
I didn't see any of that today.
No, you didn't? No, I did. I'm like, yeah, well, what's wrong? But I try to do it with like fun.
Yeah.
But what I do is like I try to see if the person is involved in what they're doing and they're happy, give me the best of you. And it's not for me, it's for the work. So I always make like we're doing this for the work. I happen to be the responsible person, but at the very end, I like people to feel connected to that and feel proud. There was a guy, I was like, oh, you feel mesmerized. He started looking at the work, and he was mesmerized by what he had done with the work. And I said, oh, you're mesmerized with my work. And then he laughed and goes, I'm actually mesmerized at what I did. And I'm like, without you, it wouldn't look this good.
Oh, wow.
So that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, of course, I don't know how to put it up.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Then make it happen.
Those guys are awesome. I didn't know what to expect coming over here. I thought it was maybe you going to be carrying like a 200-pound glass piece, mounting it on the wall. I should have assumed that it's a team effort.
Well, it is a very big thing. So I do a lot of public art. So this is processes that take years. So this project is almost 2 years. No,
Really?
It's more than
Wow.
2 years, 2 years and 3 months, something like that. So this is a program that runs in the United States called 1% per art, and every state or city has a different agency, but it's pretty much when you have a building that belongs to the state or to the federal state, it will give 1% of the cost of the building to an artist to create something for it. So this is a very socialist program done by FDR. I'm not gonna complain, but it works. But what I like about this program is that you have an agency that takes care of it. So your work is there, and it's going to be installed. It's unique. You're going to be selected. You're going to be paid very well. Like you accept the terms, and then you're going to fabricate it. You're not going to have somebody, like a whole group of people, supporting you that way.
And for those listening, it's a great location because it's in the building, yes, but it's visible from the sidewalk, which is an incredibly busy walkway right here in University of Washington. It's very colorful. Maybe we'll add some images over top right now. I'm going to have to come back to see the final product.
Yeah, I would love that if you do that.
Halfway done.
So this is the interdisciplinary building of engineer here in the University of Washington. So they asked me if I could do something that looked like a stage. Oops.
Oh, you're good.
They gave me a few words. So one was stage, which I like it because this is almost like the architect said, you know, we're here, there's a beautiful garden, and you're going to be able to see this wall. But they wanted me to use that wall, and I'm like, why can't I use the other ones? So it's going to be enveloping this kind of cube thing.
Had to break the rules.
Always. And then I said, I'm not just going to put a piece of glass. I'm just going to make something I've never done. So it's an arrangement. That's what I call like an in situ arrangement of many elements. And I'm using a lot of metal, which is the first time I actually work with so much metal. And tomorrow we're going to install the glass that has been done in Germany by people who've been doing glasses for churches for 150 years. So, but it has also digital components. So I like to play with technology. And I based it a lot. I was thinking what other place in time which was interdisciplinary, and it was like an academy or a place to learn, and it's the Bauhaus in Berlin. In the 20s, it was a moment very important where architects, artists, textile artists, like designers of all kinds, women and men met, and they had like a laboratory where and they created great stuff. And many of those people ended up coming to America, becoming teachers or architects, and they built schools in Chicago or famous school in Virginia, I think it's called the Mountain. I forgot the name of that university. Should know it because one of my favorite artists, Joseph Albers, ended up teaching there. So these are people that came to this country and gave a lot of the practice of creating stuff. So when I created this piece, I was thinking very much about what is the meaning of engineer. And if you look at Latin, the origin of the word is genius. So I'm creating something new. So I wanted something whimsical, a little bit logic, but not too much. Let them think about outside of the box. So it's an arrangement. It's very beautiful, yeah. It's
not too abstract. Like there's still function and, you know, there's still...
Well, it's interesting, the abstract thing, because I find like a lot of people in Bitcoin, they talk about modern art being...
That's where I was going with that, yeah.
I just tweeted...
Modernism in general, too, not just
Yeah,
art.
I just tweeted something back, like they're obsessed with saying that modern art, nobody understands it, that it's stupid. You can't say those things. I don't know what I put it.
Some modern art, sure, but it's a generalization that's
it's hurtful because
unfair.
it's let me see, because I corrected. So I wrote, value is subjective. If your mind runs only on logic, don't dismiss what you don't understand. The abstract and the emotional streams matter just as much. If that bothers you, look away. Saying abstraction is bad is like saying math is useless. It's a lazy judgment, and judgment is the most simplistic way to engage with life. I love logic deeply, but I'm also an artist. Yes, there is bad art, but that doesn't mean that all contemporary art is bad. End of story. Like, I'm done.
Mic drop.
Yeah,
yeah.
like you can't just say, and I don't want to say names, but you know, some people would attribute that to like low time and high time preference, and I think we have to be very responsible about our views, because people repeat like parrots. So everybody says, "Oh, this person said that, you know, modern art is bad," and also this is important to understand that there's a distinction between modern and contemporary, and nobody's making. So what is the difference? Modern art belongs to modernism. This is 100 years ago. This is a movement.
And now we're in the contemporary.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I will agree there's a lot of contemporary art that is trash, but not all of it. Same with modern art, not all of it.
Totally. Yeah. I had a relationship with an architecture. She was a student at the time, but she studied new urbanism, which is kind of a different way of organizing cities, making them more walkable. The idea of modernism in today's world has led to just the urban sprawl and things like that, to my understanding. There's basically the spaces and the places that we live around really impact how we act and how we feel about ourselves. Like, for example, if you're walking down a street and it's well lit and there's storefronts on both sides, there's people in the street, you're going to feel safe because there's people around, there's no threats. If you're walking down a dark alley and there's a couple sketchy characters in front of you, you know,
Yeah.
it's going to be different. So literally the way cities are not designed in a way that makes it easy for people to walk places. Everyone in the U.S., this is not all over the world, in the U.S., have to drive if you just want to go to the grocery store, you know.
Yeah.
The closest grocery store to me is like 12-minute drive or something like that. So, I mean, I could walk to the Safeway, but I like my grass-fed meat. So, yeah, I think there's...
What about ordering to the rancher?
Ordering from the rancher, I do that.
Okay,
yes,
good.
yes. We buy bison
Nice.
from a rancher in Idaho.
Yeah.
I've heard about a guy who will take Bitcoin for beef here in Washington. So maybe I'll have to part with some sats for that. But 100%, the people I think are realizing some of the negative outcomes, and not just of modernism, but of just the way that our civilization here has developed, and they're looking for ways to
But the thing is, you know, I think that architecture and art and everything has been reduced to a thing that is representing a culture. So, and we have to see the values of that culture. And I like abstraction, and I like sharp edges and stuff like that, because it's just aesthetical for me. Walking here through this campus, it has these amazing buildings that are, you know, not dated to be Gothic, but they have all these arches and stuff like that. They're beautiful, and but then there are also these brutalist buildings that are quite amazing, and I love brutalism. I'm sorry, I do, and they're
Have
not.
you seen the
most
nuclear building over there?
Yeah.
It's like straight from USSR or something like
yeah,
that.
something that's a brutalist building. Yeah, but it's interesting because it is actually a representation of a time, and we cannot deny that. You like it or you don't like it, it's inviting or not inviting, that's another very subjective thing, which I think is a good thing. But to say that that building is horrendous, like you can say it's horrendous, but it says that it's bad and all architecture is bad, I think it's very simplistic. We have to understand really what times we're living. And so brutalism and, you know, Soviet kind of thing, that they were living through something else. So it's representing that kind of history. And then also if it's too Baroque, for me it's too much. And it's also representing like the excess in society. So I think it's all about harmony for me. So if there's certain forms that they can be harmonious and they represent something that it makes me feel connected, that's okay. But say that all the things that are abstract and colorful are bad is just so like ignorant.
I agree. Yeah. I appreciate that perspective too, because I haven't really heard it articulated that way. And I love just reevaluating like things where you're just like, yeah, modernism sucks, or like, you know, the architecture in the US, Europe's so much better. Like, yeah, it's a different place.
It's a different place. And then if you are so interested in making better, because this is one thing that I think, like, okay, you don't like it, so you're criticizing. Can you change it? No. Then shut up.
That's the key. If you can't change something, why complain?
Yeah. Do you don't like it? Just don't look at it. Just go.
When Bitcoiners do that, I don't want the U.S. government buying Bitcoin. It's like, what did you think was going to happen? You know, like, why don't you worry about yourself?
Disappear to go to another government. Yeah, it's like a little bit, but it's interesting because, you know, people won't have the same discussion with music. Because music is also like people, I mean, there are music critics and you can say this band I like better than that, but people don't do that. But with art, it's because we don't understand exactly what it means. And I think that this is the problem. With abstract art, people think that they have to understand. It's not that. It's about how it feels. But people are worried about that they don't know what to say. And you don't have to say anything. I mean, as an artist, you don't have to say anything if you don't feel like it.
And you can't stand those written artist statements.
I had to learn to and I was like, okay, I'm going to play the game, but this is so ridiculous.
To what did you say? To give credibility or validate the work in the marketplace? Like,
yeah, because it's like you have to write an artist statement. And I was like, what? I have to explain. I mean, I have to make the work and explain it. I don't even know what it's about. Do you mean I can make it up? Okay, I'll make it up.
Yeah.
And then it's like, let's do these things. And so you read these things, and then people come and say, but that's not what it's about. And I'm like, so why do you even care about my artist statement? So then you have the critics that they come and try to read your work, and you go like, okay, like, and so yeah, it was funny when I realized that everything was really like a pretense game. And then I thought, no, I have to get out of this game because I don't like it. I make fun of it, and it's not fun anymore. But now I really appreciate that I have the opportunity to be creative. I like it. paid, and I love it. And if I can put a seed here with some sort of like, I'm doing this piece and Bitcoin is there, and I know that the energy of Bitcoin is in the piece.
I love that.
It's there somewhere, and I will come back probably in October. I want to be here for the official inauguration, and I'm going to ask to have a talk with the people. I want them to know. Obviously, I'm not going to be aggressive about the whole thing, but just say, hey, there's curiosity, and I think that if we are open to that, I'll be fantastic.
I love that. The one I didn't get to ask you, you had a moment in your life where you realized that you as much of an artist as you were, you wanted to be free more than you wanted to be an artist. Can you talk a little bit about like that transition or that
was
and also,
yes,
how did Bitcoin influence your approach to making art? Like, what was that whole?
So this was interesting. There's a moment in 2022, I think. I'm already deep into Bitcoin. I'm like already making decisions based and trying to see if I understood it. Am I really taking care of my needs? Am I really evaluating things? So it was like there was a reevaluation in my life. Like, what's the purpose of this? Should I keep on applying to these things? Like, I love it, but where am I? And there was a question I asked myself, what would happen if I stop making art for a bit and I start studying Bitcoin? Because I needed more time. That's what I felt. And I remember that I did have a long conversation with my other Monikas, because I have many, and one of them says, it doesn't matter. You're always going to be an artist. And I'm like, thank you. And then I said, so you guys don't mind that I don't? No, we have money in the bank. I have Bitcoin. And I was like, there you go. So that made me feel that I needed to really prioritize my needs, and my need in that moment was study. And because normally, if I didn't have that, I would have gone like, no, I have to go and get the other job because I don't know when I'm going to have another job. So instead of like valuing the idea that of scarcity, not of valuing scarcity, but not having kind of scarcity mentality, because I had to switch that. I would be afraid of not knowing when the next job is going to be. And when you're a freelancer, you kind of like sometimes not worry, but think about it. Yeah, well, it is there. And I switched the scarcity. I started hating that word and loving it and using it whenever I can title something. Like scarce means value, like instead of like not lacking. Because a lot of people give the meaning of scarcity. They say, I'm lacking. No, I'm not lacking. Actually, because it's not that much, that's why it is valuable. And then people go, what? And I go, just think about it and you will understand. So that's the moment I started realizing that my time was very valuable and I wanted to invest in education because I wanted to know more about Bitcoin. And I think I signed up for the Austrian economics class, and I knew that if I was going to study with Saifedian, I needed to read and ask him questions. And so I was like all the time asking questions. And I asked one of the first questions, this is in my slides of last week. First question I ever asked, which really has a lot to do with the book as well, is like, what is the difference between psychology and praxeology? And I knew as soon as he kind of guided me there, I was like, I'm gonna love Austrian economics, because psychology is the study of the psyche, which is the soul. So we're gonna look of ways to reveal what is unconscious, shadow work, whatever, like so many ways. But praxeology is the logic of how I'm going to make decisions. So there's something very logical about decision making, but sometimes if we are animals that we react and don't know how to respond, even if you're making wise decisions with logic, maybe sometimes they're really part of reactionary stuff, fear or something else, because you're not aware really what's coming. So I think, and this is a criticism I have overall with Bitcoiners, and I hope everybody not only should have a connection to the money part, but also go deeper into their emotional part, their trauma. We all have been traumatized one way, so just experiment with, it can be LSD or psychedelics, but do an integration. Do an integration, because as a human being, we're going to be much better as we go if we are more free, not just financially, but also emotionally. Because I met Bitcoiners that have all the money in the world, but they're deep inside, they're lost because they don't see that connection.
Totally. I think that's the answer to why I was drawn to your work, is because I recognize that there's this massive gap in my life. Like, ask my girlfriend, I'm not the guy who's like going into my traumas and like looking for the unconscious biases that I have. Like, I feel good, feel happy, keep moving. But there's definitely, trauma is definitely a thing. Like, no matter how small, how big. Joe Rogan, he always says, maybe he doesn't say this anymore, but back in the day he'd say, your worst day is only your worst day, basically. Like, that's the reference point. So other people have had way worse days than that, or maybe they haven't. But there's something in evaluating traumas and just recognizing them. I had a lot of issues with my family, like just arguing. I was the firstborn child, so I was just breaking the rules. I basically moved out of my house when I was 18 and have definitely fixed some of that stuff, but still inside of me, I'm like, I know my mom, I know there's still like some like baggage from the past, right?
Yeah, you will find the right time to kind of integrate them, because it takes a little bit. The first step is to recognize that we're not perfect and it's totally fine. Second one is to say, okay, if there's something that I can integrate, how do I do that? And then give yourself that opportunities. It's really amazing. And there are ways of doing it. I mean, there are people who are actually working with that. I do, because I did a lot of Gabor's mate stuff. I learned this technique. It's called somatic, which means body practice. So basically, when we have our emotions, our GPS, they help us understand the reality of what we think is real. But it's actually perception, and it's based on your conditioning and so many other things, and your race, and all, like how you perceive yourself, or how other people perceive you, and how you respond to that. So when I learned that there were things about my childhood that I had not really kind of connected because of whatever, my father died, I feel pain, I don't want to talk about it. I actually didn't talk about my father's death for many years. I moved to another school and I just didn't say a word. Protection, disassociation, whatever, like there's so many words. But I was not interested in like label anything. I was like, I'm fine, and I did well. But then pandemic came and everything, and I just I had time, and I said, maybe we should do this. And so I started going through that, and I realized that just confronting the trauma was not going to be the end of my life. Actually, it was going to be the beginning of another life that I didn't know was there, because it was a little girl waiting for it to be kind of brought to here. So I brought little Monika, 3 years old. It was very endearing. And she asked me if we could bring forth all the other Monikas. So we ended up being like 18. She leads my life because she's a little spark, crazy. The one that you're 3 years old, the one that, the little
Still
Kyle.
There.
Oh my God, that's the one that's the spirit. So I brought her over, and little by little we were practicing something like, and I still do that. Like I open space for that feeling. And even if I feel insecure about something, I feel stuff, and I just take deep breath, and then I say, it's okay, let's give that feeling a space. And I allow the feeling. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, fear or anger or whatever, and you just let it be. And then all the Monikas come, it's like, it's okay. And then it's like, guys, are we good? And so it's basically, you go back to that weird feeling, whatever that is, and you give space and you let it happen in the moment, and then you start realizing that what you're feeling is a memory, but it's not the truth. And that's how you start integrating.
Wow.
It's so powerful.
Profound.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you like about how you actually do this. So you wrote in your book, there's this, and it's probably been said elsewhere, but there's this opportunity before you react to observe the situation. So you have some stimulus. The initial thing is just react.
Trigger.
Yeah,
trigger.
How do you not do that?
So you, for instance, all the things that I'm achieving right now in my life is their triggers. So instead of being like, that's why I'm like, okay, can I fix it? No. So, I cannot fix it, but I should look at it. So I'm like, we're getting triggered. So what is it that is triggering me? And I get very, like, my triggers are always about, like, not getting my way. And I'm impatient or people.
Things didn't get delivered on time.
Yeah, but here it was like, okay, just trying to get, but like, for instance, my frustration here was like being told that there's going to be one that and that not. So I prefer the truth from the very beginning and not assumptions. I hate when people assume. So I ask, are you sure? Tell me the truth. But still lying, it's like a little bit frustrating for me. So, but I get triggers that then when I notice that there's something that is bothering me, like sensation is not good, I say, okay, what is this trying to show me? Because this is about me. It's not about the person or the thing. It has nothing to do with this person. It's like how I'm reacting. So I start having a conversation, and I ask myself, okay, what is it, baby? What is it? I don't like that. Like, oh, this person is not responding. Let's say, for instance, one of the things that I was working the last few weeks is like, for one reason or another, I was having conversations with two people, and they kind of like ghosted me. And normally you go like, oh, they don't love me, or they don't care about me, or whatever. And this time it was like, okay, take a deep breath. How does it feel? Like, shit. Where does it feel? Here in my heart. Oh, okay, so let's open the heart and everything. And then things started coming and saying, okay, maybe one of these persons is neglectful. That's totally fine. That's his problem. And then the other person, although he said that he cares, he's probably busy. So it's not that I'm excusing, but I started saying, okay, let's see how can I feel the feedback in a negative way, but embracing me. And I realized that I'm actually expecting these things from others. And the more I'm going to project that expectation, the more I'm going to suffer. Today is them, tomorrow is you. The day after is another. So I said, okay, great opportunity to work with this. And the feedback. So it was like, oh, the void is coming. The feedback is a big hole. And I will go, okay, let it be there. And I will sit down and count to 10, 20. It's like, okay, this is how it feels to feel that I am nothing. But instead of saying, God doesn't like me, or what did I do, and start thinking, I will go, this is what I have to feel, the void. And the void is a feedback that I'm not having the attention that I want. So I started kind of like having a relationship with that and saying, okay, so do you need attention? I said, yes. So why don't I give myself the attention? So I started saying, maybe we, because I speak in plural with me, maybe we should take care of certain things. Like what? So I said, that's when I started walking a lot, and said, let's do the walking and change perspective. Maybe you need to move. And I started doing that, and I started doing other little things. It was always like, take care of the little things. So, doing that, change everything. So now, one ended up answering the other one, and I'm no longer suffering thinking that they don't like me or they don't care about me. You know, you always go to that. So it's like, it's a different pace. And the fact that they don't respond doesn't mean anything about me. Could be, but then I'm not going to create until they don't bring it. Maybe one of them says, oh, you suck. And I'll go, all right. But I'm not going to make my life miserable just because I'm making a big thing about it. So it's almost like you become your own mom or your own dad. Like, you know, when you have a boo-boo, 4 years old,
it's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. And then the mom usually will tell you a joke and say, look, da-da-da. So you get engaged with it. And then when they're going to give you the alcohol, the parts that is going to hurt, you become funny. And then at the very end, it's okay, it's okay. So you're there with it. You're there with the pain. You're there with the wound. And you kind of take care of the wound. And then you say, it's okay, it's okay. Like, we're not there. The feedback is not that bad. And what is it? I mean, great. We have a void inside of our stomach. So you become creative with that.
Talking to yourself is a powerful tool.
For me, I'm psychotic. I speak to myself.
I do it all the time too. I don't know, I'm pulling a statistic out of nowhere, but I heard that there's a significant portion of the population that doesn't have an internal dialogue. That might just
my God, that's boring.
The NPCs, I don't know if it's true or not, but I can't imagine what life would be like if you did not have an internal dialogue.
Well,
how would you find your keys? How would you, like, what am I doing? I walk into a room, I'm like, I have to ask myself, why did I come in this room? And then I'll figure
you do that. I do that in the morning when I wake up. It's like, are we still on planet Earth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, so give thanks that we're still alive. Does it still suck somehow? But we're having a good life. Yeah, so 3 things to be grateful, this, that, and that. And I said, so in comparison, we're not that bad. You're right. And so it's bringing this like gracefulness to the moment and realizing, yeah, these are difficult times for a lot of people, not for me. It's not that they're not difficult, but I'm learning how to respond to any adversity in ways that I don't have to be violent, but at the same time assertive. This is 2 words that I use a lot with myself. Like I wanna be able to achieve stuff that I want, but I have to be assertive about it. So I know what I like and I don't like. And there are moments that I have to yield, but do it without violence, or tantrums.
Mm-hmm.
That I learned because I wasn't like that. I was more like, yeah, I want this and that. Now it's like, okay, can I get it? And so it's a lot of psychology, how to deal with people, especially when you have a lot of things going on. But also if you have to call out somebody who promised something or didn't deliver or is pretending, oh my God, I'm the worst. If I have to call somebody out about pretense, I will hurt them. But so I wait until I have the opportunity. I go, oh, and then it's usually like that.
The guillotine.
And they go, oh my God, I'm sorry. And I go, yeah, well, I had to call you out because it doesn't make sense.
There's something about our culture in America that is not direct, which my girlfriend's Mexican, as you know. They're very direct. The guys I'm working with in Bulgaria, very direct. I really appreciate that, but I'm just, this is where was born and raised and what I'm used to, and so I have a hard time with it too. Like you talked about, like delegating and not feeling like you're the one driving everything. Like I used to have a car detail business. I always had a hard time like giving feedback, like, hey man, you missed a spot right there. Oh. So the thing I would do is I would show them, probably not the best. I would say, hey, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
If you want to like, it's detailing, right? It's attention to detail. So I like to think that I am improving as a leader over time, but I know that I have like similar tendency to like rub people the wrong way or be too aggressive with my Bitcoin preaching or something like that.
You'll find it's a tricky thing. One of the things that I learned the most with one of my Taoist teachers was like, if you're going, especially when I started delegating, because I had no idea how to do it. So he said to me, before you tell somebody that they did the wrong thing, praise them. Say, hey, I really like this that you did here. And then eventually it's like, but next time that you do this other thing. So that was big for me because I used to go directly like, this is shit. And everybody, and I just didn't know how to deal with people. And this is what I wanted to talk also about astrology in a way. It's like, it's all relational. And I speak a lot about that in the book.
Right. So yes, this is really interesting because you're talking about like 0 degrees in relation to what? It's all, you have to have some center point or some.
So here we talk about harmonics, so it has a lot to do with music and stuff like that. So we're like in vibrations and wavelengths, but then if you look at the chart, like it's easy to just make things 2 dimensions. So you're always talking about something in relationship to something in life. Even you become aware of you in relationship to the environment or others. So this is really like when you become observing yourself, is actually one of the first incredible things that you do. You become a third person in the equation because it's you observing yourself in relationship to something. And that's what I really like. The book is written like that because I'm aware of something that I'm related to, the reader or myself, but I'm sometimes not talking third person, but seeing myself from the outside. And that's when I invite people to, hey, did you, because I'm already there. So the relationships are the most important way to evolve. But everything in the universe is relational because we are electromagnetic field. We are made out of polarities. But I think that the confusion is that we have to stay polarized. And I think that the invitation is to actually integrate and find a third way, which is the Trinity, that is a synthesis. You can say, oh, ah, and they go, ah. And that's what I call, like, we have the logical stream that is going to tell us that wrong, 0100, like, the coders are like, no. Also, our immune system says, no, don't go that way. Because the logical is always saying no. And when he said yes, it's logical. But when it's no, it's like it's not computing. Next. But the abstract is actually more like, oh, this is an experience. We read this book and I connected like that. And it's very like, no, and the logic is like, these people are crazy. And the other one is like, oh, these guys have no fun. But it's neither or, because there's the third stream that is the individual, where I have the choice to choose if this moment is logical or is abstract, or a combination. And I think that that's super important, because it's not, I don't know if you ever read The Matter of Things, or this guy's called Ian Gilchrist. He did the whole thing. He's a philosopher, psychiatrist from Ireland. He did the whole books about the right and the left side of the brain. So it's interesting. Yeah, so I'm reading a lot. I'm interested in cognition. I'm interested in how we get knowledge and information, and that's where human design really operates, because the human design is actually going to tell you how your brain works and how you absorb better. So when I do readings, I immediately go like, you will know when I do the reading that, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense.
When you read your book? Or
no, the human design, when I read the charts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So when I learned that, I was like, I have a very open, wide. That's why I'm a polymath, because I see all the connections in the world. And sometimes I go like, oh, how am I going to explain this? Because I see everything related. But then sometimes I have to just focus on one thing, and so I'll be able to communicate it. But I absorb a lot of information, and then if you ask me, I will tell you, oh yeah, I saw this, and this, and that. But it's not linear. So in school, it was frustrating for me and for others. But now it's like, that's the way so I need to engage in the question fully, because I'm not the kind of person that signs up for something and doesn't go to class. Like, it's either all or nothing. Yeah, I'm like that. So, and then I know when it's enough.
So one of the first things that I wrote on my list of questions is, we're going through this transition, right? We talked about a major shift, and we're seeing it. You'd have to live in a cave to not see it, right? Incredible amount of volatility in all areas. The world that I grew up in, the one that I mentioned, you sit in a desk and the teacher teaches you, trains you to be a specialist, right?
Yeah.
Versus a generalist, which is kind of like a polymath. Maybe I'm sure there's
something between,
difference in those things. But the question is, does being a polymath make more sense for a time in human history that's very volatile and a transition time? Like, does that set you up in a way similar to the critical thinking question, but how does like opening yourself up to this knowledge of relationships?
I would say it's more like individual, like if you do the chart, and because it's more like how your brain and your mind and your body is designed.
And they can be much different across people.
Yeah. And it depends the hour and everything. So you see, like, there's some people are just logical, and it's great. Like, you know.
That's me.
Yeah, and you don't have to suffer it, you know, like that's what you do. But maybe, you know, we can see there's a little bit of opening of the right side of the brain. I have there are 4 places. So I have right, left. So I can be very open about everything. The environment there is like, ooh. And then like right now we're focused, and then when I'm focused on something, I'm all the way, and I really use logic together because I see all the patterns. So I'm very good at pattern recognition, but if I'm focused. But if there's no need for me to focus, it's like, fuck that pattern. Like,
sure.
So it's just the way that so in school, it was a lot of activity, but I would not do well in certain things because I didn't care. So they would call and say, Monika, come over here. How come? I'm like, I'm not interested. Yeah, but I don't care. And of course, I fail those things. But now I kind of know how to do it if I want. So I think that the times that we're living, it would be more interesting if people knew themselves and try less hard to be trying to fit into something, and more like understanding what their design is, and then stop struggling to be in environments that they give you pills because you move a lot and there's no such a thing as ADHD. It's just like,
yeah, that's a hot take.
I mean, Gabor Mate says, he wrote a book, it's like, there's no such a thing. It's like they're trying to label you and give you pills for everything. It's just you are you.
Mm-hmm.
You're creative, or dyslexic. It's like my family, everybody has dyslexia, and they were like, what a torture. Like, oh, Sean, like my brother didn't even know how to read from one place to the other. Bright man, like I'd never met. It's just he saw everything upside down. Whatever. Like, wow. But so it's interesting because, you know, you're trying to make people equal. That's the problem.
That is the problem. We're not all equal, right?
No, we're not. And it has nothing to do with quality. It just has to say, like, look, there's always going to be one that is faster than the other, richer than the other, stronger, more beautiful, less beautiful, more of an asshole. Like, you know, everybody. So at the very end, it's like the scope will be that people are doing their thing so they don't have to strive to try to be something else, and then therefore probably going to be more aligned than if they're following a mold that it doesn't work. And that's what I found out in the art world in New York. It's like, this doesn't work. Because I know the trend. So everything that's selling, for instance, is so everything that is like gender thing. Now all the artists are selling it, like they're big names.
Oh, right.
Before it was all the black people, and then all the Latinx or whatever, like whatever thing is in book. So I noticed that, and I'm like, that's bullshit.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah. I just want to have, this is what Bitcoiners generally, at least myself, I'll speak from my own perspective. I don't want a handout. I just want a fair playing field. Yeah. And I just want to be able to add value and just...
You want merit. But you know what's interesting? You're telling that, you know, being so logic, that you're really connected to the book in your logical way, which is beautiful. But I think that some people are afraid of this kind of books. So I appreciate that you actually jump to the other side of the shore.
Oh, yeah. I got in there. It didn't take me long to get hooked. I'm not kidding.
What was it that hooked you, like, though?
Oh, man. I mean, the titles of each section,
yeah,
they could all be like viral YouTube videos. Here we got relational values right at the beginning. Emotional alchemy. I have so many notes of here. Letting go of past traumas. I think I just love like a book that I can just, like I said, I can just read a couple pages a day.
And it's inspired by Borges, because Borges never wrote a novel. This is the guy telling you that he's one of my heroes. And he just wrote this fantasy thing, so we don't know if they were true or not. I mean, with time, I know that he was writing history mixed with that, and I like that kind of writing. And it was just a joy to be on the subway, because I read Borges a lot when I was in New York, going from my house to the studio. And I will pick up anywhere, and it will be just another inner world. So I didn't want chapters to be that long.
Very digestible, like it's
short.
Yeah, you're already like halfway down the page pretty quickly. When there's just a long, small text, full just text, like my eyes just get tired and I just go to sleep. But oh, look at that!
You got it!
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
amazing.
You can always tell, and you're gonna see the little man there. You can always tell what I'm working on at the same time, because I just use the
it
same
crosses over. Yeah. So on the back of the book, there are numbers that are also on the wall over there.
And there's a little man there. It's also the first pages. The first pages.
The little guy that you were talking about.
The one that it's a sculpture there.
Okay, I haven't seen that one.
Well, give me the book and I'll show you where it is. So because I'm making at the same time, so sometimes I'm very playful. So I go, oh, let's put this here. Now I won't be able to find it. Yeah.
Ooh, I have a big question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
Big one. So in the book, you talked about how Christianity perceives the second coming of Christ as a physical Jesus Christ coming back to the earth, right?
Yeah.
And you seem to align more with like the Carl Jung. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
It's a bit different, but it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, you were talking about how the second coming of Christ could be the individuation process.
Yeah. I didn't make that up. It's Carl Jung. And Carl Jung wrote a book that's quite fantastic called Ion. And he was very much into astrology and the I Ching, and I don't think he lived enough to be able to. Didn't have to prove it, but he was really running charts and doing case studies with his patients. But he was able to actually see the connection between the unconscious and the conscious, and he coined a term, minology, a lot of people use, but they don't actually understand what it means. He said synchronicity. And synchronicity is not a coincidence. It's actually when you have a coincidence, but you find a meaningful connection. So if you find a meaningful connection, that's synchronistic. But if not, it's a coincidence. And there's a big layer of understanding the meaning, because most of the times these coincidences, they're not connected. So it's like, it will translate to having an insight, like, ooh, that happened. So he was really looking of ways to connect with his dreams. He has very heavy dreams since he's little, and he writes, I mean, I read a lot of his stuff, and so he writes about this fantastic world. And then in the later years, he wrote this beautiful book called The Red Book that is illustrated. And he wrote, he wrote many things, but so in one of them, he was very talking a lot about Christianity, and there's a lot of symbology at the time, because I think that Christianity, especially Catholicism, has really used the scriptures in a way that is a little bit problematic for me, because people are just interpreting the scripture verbatim, and not everybody connects to it. So I really, that's why I love mythology, because it's more beautiful to actually connect to something that is so important at so many levels in ways that is symbolic, as opposed to it's like, this is the word of God. And that's my piece that I did for the Vatican, where I was questioning the Gospel of John. At the beginning there was a word, and the word was God. But if you speak Greek, it's actually not the word. It means in the beginning there was God. That's it. And so we are the emanation of that light, that Promethean fire. You can call it many things. And so if you accept that you have that power, not because you're God and you're better, but because we carry that spark of creativity. So Carl Jung was showing us that there are many different ways to confront that, but at the very end, if we're waiting for somebody to save us, like the big savior, we're not really making any steps towards that resolution. So he invites us to say, keep on waiting, go for it, no problem. I'm not even going to be alive. But what he proposes is with the change of the eras. The Ion is a book that talks about these changes right now. The era of Aquarius, whatever. And he already observed timelines like I do. And you say, yeah, we're going to get into new renewal, the Great Reset. And you see right now with the economy, I'm not worried about it. There's going to be, we don't know if it's the Bitcoin reserve. It is something else is coming. And the disruption is needed so we can move to the next level. And so he said, if you are waiting for Christ, well, good luck with that, right? But if you're not and you're working on yourself, that is in itself the second coming, because you're going to be individual, you're going to be based, grounded, and you're going to go for it. You're going to have the courage to stand up and do what is right for you. And when you do that, other people are going to resonate at your frequency, because that's what happens with Bitcoin. It's like people start resonating, and then you don't have to worry about the one who's not doing the homework. You're just going to be leading your own way. And I think that that's super important, because it's very empowering right now for everybody to know that you just have to do the best that you can to be yourself and liberate yourself from anything that is not happening. So there's many technologies that can help, because the more you are connected to that, the more you're going to be able to serve, because the best way to serve in society is to be yourself. That's the biggest gift that you have, and that's the one that sometimes we're more afraid of. I was afraid 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, okay, should I? Because I with astrology, it was like a secret. And so I came out as an astrologer.
Oh, really? You were doing it on the side?
Yeah, I would never tell people. Few wow. People, yeah. And then 2018, I was like, okay, I'm coming out. And people, what, are you
coming
gay?
Out.
I was like, yeah, I'm an astrologer. People were like, what? It was worse. It was easier if I said I'm gay, right? No offense, I have nothing against gays, but people are like, what? How does that work? And so I started, that's a moment, 2018, I said, I have to integrate my work. I have to kind of really put things together, and so it's going to get very confusing for everybody because I'm actually going to put everything in the same laundry machine. People go, no, white, color, hot, I'm like, yes. And I knew it was going to be a moment where there's going to be a lot of like, don't know, because I also wanted to shake the tree. So I did that 2018, 2019, and then kind of mixing it all, the pandemic and then Bitcoin. I mean, everything started appearing. So now it's like, I'm all the way. But, and I felt liberated that I could talk. So for instance, one of the first talks ever was in El Salvador talking about astrology. And it was bold for me to talk about that.
For sure. Much different than the other talks.
Yeah. And I knew that I was going to lose a lot of logic people. I was like, okay. But I know that, I mean, I would have, I'm always very ambitious, so I thought, oh, I can do this. But then it's like, no, maybe I should really not dumb it down, but speak the language of logic and bring it. I tried that. So in this one that I did in Dallas, I made it very logical. And I know now how to do it. So it's like, I'll speak the logical language because that's what a lot of people feel connected to. And then inside of that logic, I'll bring stories like the book, and people go like, wow. And I go, okay, I can bring that, as opposed to being completely cuckoo. And then people go like, we lost you at the first phrase. Because I can be, you know, I understand that people can get a little bit off.
Yeah, there's logic of the Trojan horse logic, logic Trojan horse. So you get in there, speak the language that people relate to, and then you sneak in the, not sneak in, but you integrate or you infuse the real message that you're trying to get across, right?
Yeah, and I'm not afraid, like, you know, when I appeared in the Breed Love episode, like, I was completely open into, I don't know if you watch it, but I was super open about that, and I really wanted to have, like, not that I prepared, but I was, okay, I'm ready to do this all the way, astrology, mythology, the whole thing, like, just go. And I said, keep a very open and yielding position. Don't be preaching. Just keep it curious. And this is, you know, I got so many people contacting me. Oh, I spoke to my heart. Thank you. Can I have a reading? So many readings. I was like, okay, do you do readings? I was, yeah, of course I do readings. And then I would always ask, what was it about it? And it's like, there was something about the presence. You were so present, but at the same time. And it's funny because I was nervous about doing that subject, reading his chart on, like, not that I did a lot of his chart, but I did a bit, but saying, okay, this is a big audience, and I could be really, but I don't care. And it was good. Some people really appreciate it.
Okay, I think a good place to wrap up, because it is getting late. It is 9 o'clock.
Oh my God, okay. And you have like 5 hours of Monika.
Yeah, I love it. I'm so happy that we did this. Synchronicity, you could argue this is a synchronicity, right? There's our timelines just happened to interact. We met in El Salvador. We had a nice conversation in Colombia. You told me at that time, by the way, you told me Seattle University. I swear you told me Seattle University. So I drove to a different university.
I didn't even
The university in Seattle is the University of Washington. For 1 year, I went to Seattle University. It's like a private school down in Capitol Hill. So I literally got to the parking lot there, and then I checked the address that you sent me that I never looked at because I just assumed.
Okay, so that's why you were.
Definitely, yeah, it was all good. But yeah, synchronicity. When I see synchronicities, I'm always like amazed by it. I'm like, this is so cool. Like what are the chances? But in your book, you said you're not very amused. You're not very impressed by synchronicities because it's like not that big of a deal. Or I guess explain a little bit more about like why.
No, it's not that I'm not impressed. It's like the thing is like when you're aligned with yourself, there stop being this big deal. They're just confirmations. It's just. They're there to show you that you're on the right path. 100%. So you're not being like, oh my God, what a confused. Like, of course, because you're listening to the higher self, you're doing your work, you're not trying hard, you're just being you. And so the world shows you these little moments that everything is aligned, and it's perfect. But if you are always doing the wrong thing and then it becomes like this big event, then it shows me like you're probably always doing something against you, and then you notice it, and then you cannot believe it. So it's not that I disregard. I actually think it's very important because it's another way to validate that I'm actually aligned. And alignment is a very important word for me. It's in human design. It's my incarnation card. So I'm here basically. I have the capacity to really take care of needs of people and situations, but they have to be aligned. And because I have the kind of like the energy that people can get aligned. Like if you read the book, something is going to show you the way. It's not that I'm here to go tricky like that. No, but part of my energy is to be in alignment. If I'm in alignment, anything that is around me will connect to that. So it creates an impact. Even sometimes I don't have to say much, just give my presence, and then so that I'm working to be always in alignment. So then even crossing the street and just saying hello to somebody, that's going to create some impact by the way I respond to them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not this like aha incredible moment. It's like a kind of like a championship mindset. Like if you're Kobe Bryant or someone who's at the top of their craft, like when they win, they're like, yeah, like of course.
Well,
like,
it's you put work into that.
You put work. That's like sure you can celebrate it, but like it's not a crazy outlandish thing. Like you believed it was possible, then it happened, and now here you are.
The thing is, this is like that last year I practiced virtues. I think I read about that too. I practiced virtues every year, and the last year the virtue that I practiced was excellence.
Okay.
So, and that was a hard one because it's like, okay, how can you be excellent? So you actually have to give your best all the time.
Oh,
like
wow.
every effort that you do, everything that you do in the day is like, is this the best? Well, I can do a little bit. I can bend. I can do that. So it has helped me a lot to practice. This year is the virtue of discernment. Like really trying to understand, not judgment, but discerning from this, from that. So for instance, I pause right now if things are not working. I pause and I go, okay, let's check it out. So they couldn't send this, and what is the second chance? So discernment is giving me space not to be too reactive about it. So yeah, virtues are wonderful.
I had a business I was a part of called arete,
Yeah.
which is a Greek word for excellence in all areas.
Yes.
So a big thing I subscribe to is like a well-lived life it's like a polymath life.
Yes.
Like you're going to have, like what makes a good life is not one thing. It's a collage of many, many different things, your
Little
relationships,
things,
your
yeah.
work, your physical body, your spiritual, all these things. So that's the path I'm on. I think sovereignty is the driving thing for me right now. Is like I just want to be more sovereign, more capable. I want to be more prepared, resilient, adaptable, those types of things.
And curious, because
Totally,
there's
curiosity.
always, curiosity. I'm studying natural law. Some people think I'm crazy. It's like it gives a really deep complementation to Bitcoin and to like emotional freedom. Because at the very end, we're meant to be here and to pursue happiness at all costs. And a lot of people are very afraid of the legal part, but knowing the difference between lawful and legal, basic. And I don't understand why not so many Bitcoins are into it. They're afraid. They're just like, they're afraid of going to jail. But if you understand language and you understand what you're doing, you're not going to go in a place that don't belong, because you will understand that there's the whole current system is actually doing everything against you.
Right.
In purpose,
Right.
like stealing your money.
Right.
So imagine if they're stealing your money, they're also stealing your freedom, stealing everywhere, because that's why we're slaves. So you have to, if you really want to stop being a slave, you have to learn the language of what was meant to happen and why it's not happening, and just stand up and say it and do it. So little stuff like, airport screening and stuff like that, I don't comply. And the last one,
I never comply.
I said, no, I just go, my ID, this is what it is, and kind. And the last one was, TSA and Clear. I used Clear. They changed the machines, and I'm like, oh God. So I said, so what? These machines right now, they're what? The fingers. No, we don't do that anymore. And I said, so I started asking a question. So I know you're a private company, so what are you going to do with the information and everything? So the woman's just like, well, right now, if you don't comply here, you cannot travel. And I'm like, oh yeah, is that right? Okay, let's see. So she said, so you're going to do it here? And I said, well, let's do it here because anyway, they have my information. But I'm going to decline over there. She goes, no, you're not. And I'm saying, just watch me. So we went together, and she came after me running, and she said to the guy from TSA, she can't go in. And he goes, why not? And she starts saying stuff, and I said, excuse me, ma'am, calm down. The authority right now here is not you, but it's him. So, sir, this is my passport. Give it to him. He goes, okay, you're good. And she's like, she cannot go through. And I'm like, and you are who? Like, will you? And I said, do you understand that you work for a private company? You have no authority over me. And I said, ah. And then I said to the guy, can you please tell her? And he goes, yes, you can go ahead. And I said, I'm sorry, between him and you have no authority. And even if he was not here, it's zero. Mm-hmm. And stop harassing people. Just like, what's your problem? And the guy was laughing because I was like, what's wrong with these people? This was in Texas, but it was like, so it's like crazy. Complying. It's important to understand, and I think that I will take more time to explain all these things later because I'm studying it, and I think that I want to be inspirational in that sense that there are so many ways to become free. Emotional, psychologically, financially, legally.
Totally. It's not just money. That's definitely one thing. That's one thing I learned from Luke Mikic, right? His story is he had a business in Australia. They said if you don't get the jab, you can't be a personal trainer. He was a physical personal trainer. And he realized, like, yeah, he had Bitcoin and he had a nice income stream from his business. But if the government can shut down your business, then you're not free. Yeah. So, sovereignty it's a broader thing, right? And ultimately it ends with like more self-sustaining practices, I think, like being less reliant on just the government in general.
The government and like stuff, like for instance, like food. Food is very important, and that it's our needs. So how close are you eating that is closer to really your health? Choices are what makes a difference, and people make choices sometimes out of fear, or I don't want to say laziness, but lack of interest and looking for another option. So freedom, and I say this all the time, like my biggest need in life is to be free. But when I understood that freedom means having more than one option, that's when I knew that that was the only thing I was going to pursue. The ability to have a choice to say, yeah or no. But when you
optionality.
When you don't have options, you're a slave. You're dead. So that's the only thing that I'm like, okay, if I don't have an option, there's always an option. Mm-hmm. I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And your choices today impact your options tomorrow.
Yes, because you're like acting out of fear or something. So I make sure that, if I'm afraid, I will confront it and say, what is the worst thing? And this is another thing, like, what's the worst thing that could happen? So fear is like, and they go, excuse me? And you go, okay, so let's do plan B. What? And fear doesn't like when you say let's do plan B because they're thinking that plan A, you're going to be...
Going to comply.
And then I go... And guess what? Let's do plan C, plan D. And then fear goes like, you're such a party pooper. And I'm like, uh-huh. And then fear goes away. Because I'm always thinking of different chances. And then I go, well, I already went through all of them, so I know what's going to happen. Just, if I'm worried, I would just go run 3 different options. But this, I became like this as a Bitcoiner. Not before. Because I became less, like, I don't trust any authority. So you can say, don't worry. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to start worrying. Like, did you just say no? Don't worry. Oh my God. You just gave the key word for me to start worrying. And I'm going to start asking questions to do plan B. What happens if this? What happens if that? Like, what happens if that? And so then I will have options. Because if I depend on your response or lack of it or reaction, I'm dead. So this is something, so I think that's that. And I want to say one last thing about polymatheia, which I think is interesting. A lot of people are polymaths. It's not something special. It's just the word that I use because sometimes I would say it's been more challenging for me to say all the things that I'm interested in. And I think that we all have that capacity to integrate everything. So, but education has told us to you just define yourself here, or career, like in New York, it's like you have to define yourself. I don't want to define myself, but I'm interested in studying so many things. So I like that word because mathematiki, which a lot of the people think that has to do with numbers, is actually the study of many things. So you're ready to listen, to learn from a teacher or from something that is more wise than you are. So it's a state of curiosity that it gives you the possibility to just investigate and learn from trial and error. So that's why I started calling myself like that. It's sometimes I have to explain what it is, but then people, when they see, oh, okay, I see where Bitcoin is. Oh, I see where it's, because before it was like,
they're not surprised that it goes many directions.
Yeah, because the art world is like nuts and the other one. So now I feel more like I can talk about it and yeah, I'll bring it. And there are many polymaths. It's not something unique. It's just like, okay, I'm interested in so many subjects, and I think that Bitcoin allows that because you learn about so many things.
Totally. There's so many ways the rabbit hole goes all directions.
And then you learn a little bit politics, a little bit this, a little bit that.
Yeah,
Some people know more about policy, other people just want to talk about whatever. So we all have that capacity because we're building a whole society, I think. Well, Kyle, this was amazing.
Amazing.
10 hours.
I don't know how long we've been going, a long time, but either I can read this or you, if you're okay with it.
Yes.
I was just looking through there's poems at the end of the book.
Yes.
Do you want to do the honors?
Okay, I can read it now.
This is the one that stood out to me.
Oh, Ecclesiastes. Okay, so this is from the Bible. And I made a piece a while ago, in 1998, where I was filming the Brooklyn Bridge. This is my view, and I was filming the view. And every day, at the time I was a photographer, I would pick up a camera and take a picture every day from a different perspective from the window, and then also put a video camera to film for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And so what I was doing, this is when I started seeing that observation was one of my practices because it made me feel different every day. And I ended up doing a piece that it was the 2 years of that. So this is, and then it came to me that the voice that I had to read in the video, it was the Ecclesiastes. It's come from the Bible. So it says, there is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Ecclesiastes number 3.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's the Bible.
Monika, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle.
It's been such a good time.
Yeah.
Learned a lot, and I'll be watching this whole thing. I'm the third. There's a second version of me that's the editor for these podcasts, so I get to watch us interact.
I love that.
And learn from you and myself.
Thank you, Kyle.
Process,
and I love that you read the book, and I'll tell you when the second one is on its way.
Please do. I'll be the first one to send you some sats for it, because I paid for this in Lightning.
Yes, that was great.
That makes it even more special.
Thank you.
A little more weight to it. So
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Monika.
Good night, everybody.
All right, that's a wrap on the episode with Monika. Thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far, that means you probably got something out of this episode, and I'd love to hear what it was. Was there a certain topic or question, or just a takeaway that you had from this episode, something that you hadn't thought about previously, or something that you realized that you could look deeper into and explore further? So that's where I'm at. This is an entire new realm of study for me, and Monika just inspired me a little bit to open my mind to these things that the logic side of me says, that's woo-woo, that's crazy. Slow down and evaluate and really look into some of these things that may have been blind spots before. So that's number 1. Thank you for listening. And number 2 is, if you would love to support this show, there's a couple ways you can do that. Number 1 is just leave a review, leave a comment, like, subscribe. More importantly, though, is send this link directly to somebody who you think could really resonate or get value from this episode. That's my goal. I want to make episodes that have real, tangible, tactical, and information that can actually be applied, right? Tactical, tangible, those are the words that I'm going for. So I need to shut up. I need to get out of here. This episode's over. Thank you. Leave a review, subscribe. All those things mean a ton. Until next time, peace.